My mother abused me my whole life and is now suing me to see my children. I'm fed up. I am a 41-year-old, happily married father of 5 children. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and both of us came from fractured, chaotic families. My wife's parents divorced and were both alcoholics. Her father died of liver failure, and her mother has cooled off a bit and has retired. My parents went through a vicious, violent divorce when I was a child. My father moved 10 states away to get away from the craziness, and my mother has never changed. Because of our experiences with violent and unstable families, my wife and I have worked extremely hard to be picture-perfect parents and spouses. We've done everything you can think to have a perfect life for our kids. My wife is a sports coach, and I'm a scoutmaster with a BSA. Our kids are healthy, engaged, and have everything they need physically and emotionally. This has been in spite of our families, not because of them. My mother is a terrible woman. She systematically abused me throughout my whole childhood and contributed to be a violent, bitter, mean, and aggressive person to me throughout my whole life. I could sit here for hours and write about the things that she's done. She used the courts to destroy the life of my father for decades. Once he was out of the house, she turned her anger at me with physical and emotional violence. When I was 16, she expelled me from the house and left me homeless. I had to go from house to house, figuring out where to live, and try to graduate high school. I ended up living with an older boy that was about 4 years older than me, and I had to engage in a sexual relationship with him in order to secure that housing. I was not gay, I did not want to be gay, and I had to endure something that destroyed me in order to not be sleeping on the streets. When I turned 18, I was able to start working a better job, and was able to get out of that bad situation and start my life from scratch. My wife and I have scratched and clawed our way into a stable, middle-class lifestyle. We both went to college at night for years and years, and we have good jobs and a house in the suburbs. Out of a sense of duty to our family, I sought to include my extended family in our lives and permitted a relationship with strict boundaries between my mother and my children. For the most part, she has been fairly stable for about 20 years. I say stable in that we have a routine contact about once per month for that time period, with a minimum of disruptive behavior. She has never acknowledged her abuse to me, as she is an extremely selfish person. Everything about our past has been left unsaid. My mother, over the last 2 years, has become completely unraveled. Her second husband decided to leave her for his own health and sanity, and she has instantly reverted back to the most cruel and the most bizarre behavior imaginable. All aspects of her life have been affected. She is calling the cops, suing him in family court, alienating large parts of her family from one another, all while trying to tell my children about why their grandfather is a bastard for how she feels about him. Once I saw this happening, I said, "That's it, not again," and took some action. At the beginning of this year, I wrote a very courteous note to my mother, asking her to reevaluate the way that she's been behaving to me and my family. When I tell you that it was neutral and courteous, I really mean it. I checked it like 5 times. She responded by calling me terrible names, ungrateful piece of shit for example, and screaming bloody murder on the phone at me. I blocked her from my phone, then she did the same thing to my wife. So I informed my mother by email that I would like to maintain distance until she works on herself in therapy or with her divorce mediator. Things lay still for about 6 months. This morning, I wake up to a bizarre series of emails from my mother asserting that she wants to see my children for their birthday, which is coming soon, and that she's giving me 24 hours to provide acceptable dates for permitting visitation or to be prepared for a legal summons to family court. I'm like, what the hell? This woman is the equivalent of a schoolyard bully, following me around in life, tormenting me non-stop until you just want to cry. The worst part of a bully is that when you ask them to lay off you for even 5 minutes, they just take that as a cue to keep it up even more. I took one look and I was like, holy shit, this woman is clearly out of her effing mind. Now, I know in the post title I said that she's suing me. I work in the legal field, and I know that until I've been summoned to appear, that I have not been sued. So no, she's only threatening to sue me right now. Sorry for using the hyperbole, but I'm finding myself in the same bizarre, out-of-touch reality that everyone in this person's life finds themselves in. This batshit insane woman forced me to see my own father at a McDonald's when we were kids for 2 hours every 2 weeks, as per the court order, while she waited outside in a running car. I was only allowed to see him in this fashion because she hated him and didn't care what this would do to her own kids. There were more than a few times when the clock would strike 8 and she would come screaming into the McDonald's, threatening to call the cops and have my dad arrested for kidnapping while grabbing us by the arms and pulling us out of the store. This is what she's capable of doing with the family court. I had a literal hyperventilating panic attack on the floor of my office this morning. I have sought to be respectful, mature, and use good decision-making this whole time. My wife and I have an extremely secure marriage, and she is in agreement with me 100% through all of this. I'm finding myself wishing that my mother would just die already, and just to please leave me alone. She's like this inescapable bully that will never, ever, under any circumstances, leave a person alone until she's proven that she can hurt them. I don't even care what she's experienced in her life. I just need to be away from her. So that's my true off-my-chest story. I've been living with this shame and fear and lingering self-hatred for 30 plus years, all the while trying to be super dad and great career man. I called a local family law practice today to get a referral. I'm going to ask them to send a demand letter to her to try and get her to back the hell off. But look at what this has come to. I have to shell money out of my own pocket to protect myself and my kids from my insane mother. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield sometimes. Ironically, the money I'm going to have to send to the lawyer for their retainer is money that I had earmarked for the kids to go to summer camp. So figure that one out. Thank you for letting me tell you my story. Just typing it out helps. OP on if there are legal precedents that gives her threats in his area. OP says, New York does provide an avenue for grandparents to sue for custody, although it would turn into a protracted legal fight that'll cost me a lot of money and aggravation if she does. In general, the process is the punishment. I had to deal with the family court in CPS, cops, etc. when I was 10 and my parents were getting divorced. If you wanted to see me literally pass out on the floor, you drag me back to family court. OP on his mother having the financial means to sue for grandparents' rights. I've seen this woman use the courts to destroy my father for over 10 years. The answer is, who knows? I guess I'll just have to wait for a court summons to see what she will do. In the comments, Chocolate Candy Bar says, OP, I'm extremely sad to read it. I suppose you know that, would she sue you, this would more likely bring to her 40 years horrors being exposed in court and her being denied to stay on the same planet of your kids. So, I suppose that you're here to just get it off, and yes, you don't deserve it, and definitely yes, you are paying for having been a good person. May life repay you and your mum. All my vibes are for you. You should have plenty of proof to get a restraining order, and do not worry about her getting grandparents' rights. She would have to have a well-established relationship with the children already, which does not sound like that's the case. They don't just give grandparents visitation rights because they're grandparents. I would definitely change your number and go file restraining orders. It sounds like she is unhinged, and you are concerned for your family's safety. At the very least, if they deny it, make sure that you issue a letter of no trespassing so she cannot come to your home. If she violates that, then you should have enough grounds to get the restraining order. You could even use her own words against her. Tell her that she's welcome to take you to court, but until then, do not contact you for any circumstances. If she wants mediation, she can take you to court. That will not end well for her. Not only change the phone number, but completely ghost her. Do not reply to anything she does to contact OP. The courts aren't going to side with her over this. She sounds completely crazy. I really don't think that this time will be the same as the 10 years that she dragged the dad through family courts. Completely different circumstances here, and trying to sue for grandparents' rights seems really shifty. It's never really worked in any of these stories before, and I don't see it working this time. It's unfortunate that there's really not too much that you can do to keep her away, but if you can get a restraining order, I'd just go for your life with that one, but really, I don't know what you can do in a situation like this besides bang your head against a wall and pray that she leaves you alone. But that really obviously isn't going to happen. And now, on to the update. So I posted this all on Thursday when I was experiencing a serious amount of turmoil. Since then, I've calmed down a lot and also had the good judgment to talk this over with the important people in my life. First things first, I'd like to thank everyone for the words of encouragement and support that was given. There was so many surprising insights from so many of the posters, and I found myself agreeing with and appreciating many of the stories of support that were posted by others. I now understand that I am not the only person with a domineering, selfish, easily enraged parent. To all the people who blamed me for being a victim of my mother, and somehow at fault for all of this, well, I want to use some strong language to you. But I'll just ask you to please think about how fortunate your life has been that you haven't experienced what I've experienced. So on to the update. As it turns out, only 2 states in the Union have codified grandparents' rights, California and New York, and I do live in New York. Basically, in New York, a grandparent does not have the automatic right to have access to grandchildren, but a grandparent does have automatic standing to file a petition to be heard in family court. The petition can be squashed, but they can file the petition. I do want to get back to this later. I did conference with a family law attorney on Friday, and he helped me to understand the situation and craft a strategy. He was generous enough to not require a retainer unless and until I am served with legal papers. He basically explained that the grandparent does have standing to file a petition based on a pre-existing relationship with the grandchildren, but that she would most likely not be able to overcome the desires of 2 married parents who are both exercising their judgment for the health and safety of their children. He explained that in New York, our simple desire to terminate a relationship would most likely be overcome in court. However, if we introduce some of the specific actions that she's exhibited over the last few years, familial alienation, adult humor near children, uncontrollable anger, hoarding of house cats, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, that we would most likely prevail in a court setting. He explained that the good thing is that we already had restricted contact between our children and my mother to about once per month, and that in his experience, he had never seen a court order or grandparent visitation for more often than once a month, for 1 hour per session. I tried to be reasonable, so I said, okay, the worst case scenario is supervised status quo. I did broach the topic of a restraining order, and I was quickly schooled on how that works. Despite the Reddit attorneys who all assured me that I can automatically get a restraining order, well, I hate to say that you are all completely wrong. An order of protection has to be accompanied by some facilitating act of domestic violence. Because I've only been harassed and alarmed by words, I can't be granted a restraining order, period. However, if my mother causes some disorderly act, such as coming to my house and causing a ruckus, that could trigger an order if and only if I document it by having the police come and detailing a report. So keep that in mind next time you recommend a restraining order. They're not easy to get. The attorney recommended that I send a private cease and desist to my mother via certified mail and email. I decided to write a 2-page brutal takedown of this woman in order to A, blow off some steam, and B, document in writing my concerns and try to get ahead of her legal maneuvering. I decided to take a 2-pronged approach. First, I send the cease and desist to her on Friday at lunchtime via email and also certified email. And then I took a page out of her playbook and publicly scorched the earth to apply social pressure to her. I emailed and texted every single member of my extended family, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, my stepfather, and my father, and spoke to several of them to tell them exactly what was happening. Whether they wanted to hear it or not, I sent them intimate details of my mother's abuse and my decision to cut her off for the welfare of myself and my family. My reasoning there is simple. My mother's abuse thrives in closed doors and embarrassed silence. For 30 years, I've had to hear, oh, that's just the way your mother is, while people just stood by and let her act in the most insane and violent ways you can imagine. My mother got angry at my stepfather last year and tried to run him over with her car, then crashed her car into the front door of his business, screaming at him and ranting and raving in public. Do you know what people did? They surely called the police or an ambulance and had her monitored for her safety, right? No, my sister quickly threw her into her own car and drove her away so that she wouldn't be arrested. My stepfather was so embarrassed that he took the crashed car, drove it to a parking spot, and then paid out of pocket for the damage to the front of his business. This is what happens in families that are dealing with a crazy person. They cover it up, hoping that it will get better someday. Well, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. I sought to publicly embarrass and pressure her for a change. Anyway, by Friday afternoon, my mother got the message and sent me emails telling me that I can stop attacking her and maligning her to my family. She indicated that she would abandon any legal efforts to seek visitation with my children. This was a relief. But to be fair, I was almost looking forward to having a public forum to describe her antics at court. Nevertheless, it seems like she's backing off for the moment. The fallout and damage to my extended family is most likely severe and permanent. However, my wife and I have discussed this fully and have decided that this is the direction that we are going in. We'll just have to have holidays by ourselves if the family can't be loyal and supportive to me. On to the last point, and I really want to drive this home. In 1991, my mother conducted an incredibly vicious divorce against my father. I mean, she literally sought to destroy him, and she did. He was completely beaten by her. One of the things my father told me about just this weekend was that at the time, my grandparents on his side sought to have guaranteed visitation with us after the divorce. My mother actually went to the court on that specific topic and specifically litigated that she was the custodial mother and had sole decision-making about who the children would be around. The court ruled at that time that in fact, there was no right for a grandparent to see children, and my mother successfully was able to keep me away from my very loving and happy grandparents for years. I was only able to see them during court-mandated visitation with my own father. The law in New York changed in 2000 so that grandparents' rights came into effect. Too late to help me, unfortunately. I want to really drive this home. The effing balls on this woman to go to court on her own behalf and state in a court of law that she, as the custodial mother of children, has the sole and ultimate decision on who her children have relationships with, and then 35 years later attempt to use the changes in law to assert that she has grandparents' rights to visitation despite the wishes of both parents, was too much for me to hear. That alone made me say, no way, not happening under my watch. So that's the update. Long-winded, yes, but it makes me feel good to type this out. I'm finally able to unburden the unbearable shame and embarrassment of what happened to me to members of my family, and I won't allow myself to be ignored anymore. I'm 41, and my selfish, insane baby boomer asshole mother is in her mid-70s and has no power over me anymore. I am sick and tired of bottling this up. Anyone who doesn't like it, they can go suck an egg. I deserve to have loyal and faithful people in my life. In the comments, Astrale says, "Isn't her case now public record? If she believes that only custodial parents should dictate a child's relationship with extended family, isn't that something that a lawyer can look up and use?" OP replies, "I have started the FOIL request at the family court where the divorce was adjudicated. However, this will likely take months and months to get the records. I may read them just to more fully understand my family's history." Man, I am so unbelievably glad that you stood up for yourself and that you and your wife are uniting and standing up to your extended family. That's not easy to do. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, but abusers are so good at making you believe that you are the one exception. Exactly. And good job, OP. From my own personal experience, it can be difficult to cut a toxic, abusive person out of your life. So many people follow the same path as their parents. It makes me happy to hear that you are raising your children the complete opposite of how she raised you. In limiting contact and going no contact, you are not only protecting yourself, but also your children. No one should have to endure that, and I'm so sorry that you did. But be proud of the fact that you and your wife are ending that cycle. In New York, the burden of proof for a TRO is high. Why so many jump to that, thinking they give things out like that freely? You wouldn't want a system that allows that. Being made uncomfortable is not grounds for TRO, And in a dysfunctional family where abuse is chronic and lifelong, but rarely enough to cause arrest, people who exhibit controlling and abusive behavior know what they can and cannot get away with legally in most cases, and have enablers that hide behind their silence and shame. It is frustrating. Unless minors are witnesses to that behavior, CPS acts on this quickly. TROs are usually granted to them. Parents can be faulted for failure to protect if they do not shield the children from a relative's behavior. The culture has changed in this regard from the 80s and 90s. What matters now is the future. Protect your children and go to therapy for yourself. Intergenerational trauma stops with you, and you are taking steps to do that. But you also have to heal yourself. The child you were that was not heard, loved, valued, or protected by your primary caregiver, mum. It'll take hard work and some time, but if you take the therapy seriously, it'll heal you and help become the healthiest version of yourself, and as a parent, that you can be. And you will be mentally free. Good luck to you. Quote, "This batshit insane woman forced me to see my own father at a McDonald's when we were kids for 2 hours every 2 weeks while she waited outside in a running car. I'm trying to understand how the courts only granted the father 2 hours per fortnight visitation. On what grounds?" The mum probably made up a lot of bullshit that made the dad sound abusive, uncaring, etc. I dated a guy who had an ex like that, but even worse. It wasn't regular visits, she would just phone with 1 hour's notice, and if he wasn't there, she'd tell the kids, he didn't love you enough. Oh my god, that's so evil. It took him years and thousands to sort the court custody. Sadly, it took a toll on the relationship. It was hard to be second best to ex's crazy, and we had to keep the relationship secret or she would cut him off. He had to, and did put his kids first, but the frequent cancelled dates were too much. Her fault, really. As a friend of his, though, I was pleased when it was all finalized, and to see that he's settled with a nice girlfriend now. Cases like that are why co-parenting apps are a godsend. No more lies about who agreed to do what or when. It is all documented and time-stamped. My wife, 29 female, has lost a lot of weight. I, 31 male, want to make sure that she is okay. So my wife has always been pretty average size, 5'7", 130 pounds-ish. I don't know 100% because we just don't talk about it, but has mentioned it in the past. I do know when I buy her clothes and I ask, she always said she was a size 6, if that helps. She was also always pretty strong, does massage therapy, and was really good at deep tissue. I mean, there are times when she has worked on me and it hurts, and I'm not a small guy. About 6 months ago, she started changing things, not really eating junk food, and she joined some classes at the YMCA, yoga, and some cardio. Since then, the weight has really fallen off her. I don't know exactly how much because the few times I've asked her, she said, "I don't know because I don't care to weigh myself." So I just drop it. But if I had to guess, I think she's lost at least 20 to 25 pounds, if not more. She seems healthy in terms of energy and her skin has really cleared up, but I have noticed some other things. I was doing laundry, which I do a lot, and her jeans are now only size 0 to 2. Doing massage, she has to do her own sheets, and the other day I heard her really struggling to carry the bag of laundry up the stairs. Yes, it's a big bag, but never have I noticed that, and we've been together for years. I asked her, "Are you okay with that?" And she just said she needs a strong man to help her out, and started flirting and getting intimate with me. Is she changing the subject? Which leads me to my next point. Without too much info, she looks completely different without clothes. She had some curves, etc. before, but now she pretty much has a figure like a ballerina. And she says she feels great, but I recently picked her up during the act and it was literally like nothing. Another big thing I noticed was when she worked on me again for a massage last week, all of the deep pressure that she had before was gone, and I could tell she was really struggling. But if I bring it up, she gets defensive and tells me she feels better than ever and I should just be happy for her. Which I am. I just worry and don't know what to do. The final straw here was our dog, who likes to walk underneath our legs all the time and nudges her head up, and has done so since she was a puppy. Literally lifted my wife off the ground last night. My wife laughed about it like it was funny, but I was alarmed. Our dog is part Mastiff, we think, and about 85 to 90 pounds. But still, that has never happened before. I don't know how to approach her. Every time I have, she shuts it down. I know she still gets her period and she does eat with me, just no junk food. She's never eaten big portions, and those haven't changed, but the snacks afterwards are only me now. I can't blame someone for wanting to be healthy, but I just want to make sure that she's okay. In the comments, Colorful Blur says, "Change is always hard, but it seems like she's really feeling better. The cardio and less junk food are great. However, if she wants muscle, she needs to have more protein and consider weightlifting. I'm from a farm life, and lifting heavy stuff has always helped keep the body toned while keeping down the fat aspects. As long as she's happy, has her period, and is eating well, I wouldn't stress. She's not super tall either, which makes it even more quote-unquote normal. You can say I'm proud of you for working on yourself. Now that you've cut this out, what are your next steps? Let her lead you. Don't suggest anything." My aunt did this and realized she had to have a beer every night to maintain a better body weight. She may say that she wants to bulk up in a bit. Just go with it. As long as her doctors are fine and she's fine, I wouldn't worry. Good on you though for caring so much about your wife. OP says, "I don't think she wants more muscle. The reality is, she likes being this size. At least that's what I'm gathering. She likes to play the damsel in distress role and have me do the heavy lifting. I just want to make sure she's okay. My husband's butt vanished 1 week a couple of years ago. I was worried and said so. Something like, 'You've lost a lot of weight. When was your last doctor's appointment?' He saw a doctor and then got a call that he needed me to drive him to the emergency room. His blood was basically syrup. I doubt that's what it is for your wife, but my husband having diabetes was a complete surprise. Weird health stuff can sneak up on relatively healthy people." I'm going the opposite direction of these comments. If she has actually lost 20 to 25 pounds, if she truly is 105 or 110 pounds at 5'7", she's severely underweight. I think you're going to have to talk to her because this is really serious if she's actually lost that much. I know men tend to really have no idea what women weigh, and I'm hoping that that's the case here because I also find the thought of a 5'7" weighing 105 alarming. I'm going to assume that's the case because 130 and 5'7" isn't average, it's pretty slim. I don't know enough about these two to pass enough judgment on, but if it is alarming to the OP here that potentially there is something going on under the hood, it's a health risk, I don't see the problem with him reaching out and being like, "Hey, can you just be honest with me? Is everything all right? Are you sure that you're healthy and that nothing is going on? There's no cancer or any health concerns that I should be worried about because I care for you as a person and I just want you to be okay." I think OP is completely within the right to be reaching out and concerned as a partner, as I would be if my significant other continued to brush off something so obvious in front of my eyes and then kind of just change the topic as often as possible. Not saying she's an asshole for doing that, but it's scary to see someone be so combative towards your concerns. And now, onto the updates. We talked this weekend, and I took a lot of the advice and came a place of concern, and it definitely helped. First and foremost, she responded positively and agreed to go get checked out. I was pretty close on the amount of weight loss. She is actually a little less than I thought. But the important thing is that she agreed to go get checked out, and since I always skip my checkups, I agreed to get one too. So a big step for the both of us. She also explained to me that before we met, she was closer to the weight that she is now than what she was, and this is where she feels best. I definitely won't dismiss that either. I'm glad she responded positively and continued to reassure me that she feels the best that she's felt in years and will be happy to go to the docs. In the comments, Available Maze says, "I'm so pleased to hear this. But I'm also really glad that you showed her that she wasn't alone in any of it, and you got to check up yourself as well." OP says, "Yes, it's definitely good that we are both going." What concerns me the most is how her grip lost strength, and how she seems to be a bit more unstable on her feet than she was before. It's good that you both go to check on it. Maybe not beforehand what pissed you off and made you concerned. It may not add up to anything for you right now, but it may do so for the doctor. OP says, I think it was just her strength overall, and I definitely expressed that to her. Getting slimmer, along with losing strength, is a concern for someone living off giving massages. Why didn't she notice that herself? OP says, that's a good question. I don't know, especially when I noticed a major difference. I'm so glad the conversation went well. About 8 years ago, I lost 20 pounds without really trying. I had left a desk job and was walking around and working out a little more. I didn't think much of it until I mentioned this to my doctor. Turns out my blood sugars were in pre-diabetes range. I was able to get it back under control. But big weight loss without much change can be a sign of something bigger. Fingers crossed that you both come back with clean bills of health. OP says, yes, I hope it's just her exercise diet. Felt better when she told me that it used to be her weight. Jesus Christ, he said she'd actually lost more than he thought. That's like 5'7" and 100 pounds. Yeah, I was hoping she was just losing fat and gaining muscle, so the body recomp made her look like she weighed less. But that doesn't seem to be the case, especially since she seemed to be weaker now than before. I'm just gonna guess that all's well that ends well in this story. I'm not gonna go prying and asking, hey, so did it turn out that you guys both have cancer or what? If that's how she was before, and she's happy with how she is now, then good on them. I'm glad that things are working out. And I'm glad that there wasn't any huge argument about this. Yet another very good example of humanity and being a decent person on Reddit. Who would have thought, huh? Our next post is by user Planning a Wedding, titled, My fiancé is uncomfortable with my best friend and his wife being in our wedding. My fiancé and I are 30, male and female, fairly socially liberal, together 5 years, interracial couple, not religious. My best friend and his wife are 30 male and 27 female, strongly Christian, social conservatives, married for 7 years. My best friend is going to be my best man, and I was his best man. Our friendship is somewhat unusual because we're pretty much opposites as far as political and personal beliefs are concerned, but my policy with him is to never discuss these issues so as to avoid conflict, and it works. My fiancé used to like best man and his wife, BM and BMW, when they first met. But BMW likes to post about her personal views a lot on Facebook, and through that, fiancé has learned a lot about BM and BMW's political views, and it has changed her opinion of them. Topics of BMW's Facebook posts in the past have included condemnation of homosexuality, abortion, and vaccination. My fiancé is not very political, but she has told me that she has trouble interacting with BMW, knowing that she's homophobic, among other things. She avoids these topics in conversations like my policy, and can have friendly conversations and behave cordially, but prefers not to spend time with this couple. She has confessed that she wishes that they were not in our wedding, but has not told me outright that they can't be in it, basically leaving the choice to me. I told her our differences in political opinion shouldn't affect our relationship because these topics are just hypotheticals to us. We are not gay, we have never had an abortion, and none of us have kids to vaccinate. None of these affect us personally yet, maybe in the future, but there's no reason they can't be in our wedding now. But then fiancé said that people like BM and BMW tend to be highly judgmental, and she doesn't want to feel under scrutiny on our wedding day. Our wedding will be secular, and she thinks BM and BMW, who are strongly religious, will frown at that. We are also an interracial couple, and she thinks that homophobia goes hand in hand with racism, despite BM and BMW never having made racist comments against her or our relationship. Fiancé seems to think that they can't be homophobic without also being secretly racist too. So I can either keep BM and his wife in our wedding, knowing that fiancé will be uncomfortable, or tell them that they're not invited and have to come up with an explanation why. It boils down to this: they support us and our marriage. The problem is, though, fiancé doesn't really think they support our marriage 100%. While they're not overtly racist, my BM and his wife have made uncomfortable comments that border on racism against one ethnic minority, which is not the one minority my fiancé belongs to, but nonetheless, she thinks they're secretly racist and disapproves of our marriage. My BM and his wife made the comments about black people. For example, one comment expressing disapproval of white/black marriages. My fiancé is East Asian. BM and wife have never shown racist attitudes against Asians. If they had, I would have done something by now. In fact, they seem even to have favorable opinions of Asians compared to other groups. Fiancé thinks that racism against one minority is equivalent to racism against all minorities, which I definitely understand, but since their prejudices are fairly mild and don't directly involve us, I don't think it'll hurt to just ignore it for the sake of keeping the peace. A deleted user says, "Funny how you conveniently left out that your wife is East Asian and that your friends have made racist remarks about other minorities. Racism is not a hypothetical to your wife. She is a woman of color and has most likely faced racism at some point in her life. You are a guy about to enter an interracial marriage who may have mixed-race children in the future, but you completely dismiss your wife's perfectly reasonable dislike of your racist friends? Marriage is about being a team, and you already seem to be siding with your white racist friends over her." Quote, "Fiancé seems to think they can't be homophobic without also being racist too. OP tried to pass it off too, like she was crazy for thinking they might be racist. Nope, they are openly racist as hell. Just against black people though, so it's okay in OP's eyes. They haven't called her or anything yet, so it's cool. Maybe BM is saving that for the speech. This has to be fake. No one is this much of an idiot or so insensitive to someone they profess to love." That was my first thought too. Going from interracial couple to Facebook bullshit about the gays, I assumed fiancé would at least suspect they are also racist, and lo, it comes to pass. Time to choose, OP. Choose wisely. And it's clear who is good and right, I think. Assigning human rights issues as mere irrelevant hypotheticals says a lot about the kind of person you are. If you have children, they will face issues that you can't even begin to understand right now because you can't even put yourself in your wife's shoes at this moment. I hope you become the kind of man that she deserves. I don't even understand how OP can be so blasé about stating, yeah, they're terrible people deep down who hate others based on the color of their skin, sexual orientation, religion, etc., but screw it. I'm a white straight guy, so I don't give a crap because it doesn't affect me. Like, I'm a straight white girl, and if I hear someone say something racist and homophobic, I don't just quietly sit there because I don't fall into those groups. At the very least, I say, that's effed up. You don't have to unleash hell or cause a scene, but it's not hard to let people know that they're being dicks and you're not going to listen to it. And I remember those comments and keep them in the back of my mind while dealing with them. Also, there are issues that males face in America that some people just ignore or continue to perpetuate. And just because it doesn't affect me, doesn't mean I'm like, oh well, as long as you're cool with women, we're good. I never have to worry about growing a dick, smiley face. I don't have to think about one day I might have kids, and then this might actually affect me to be upset at their treatment of others. Hatefulness towards any group of things they can't change shows a fundamental lack of empathy and disconnect with social intelligence. OP explicitly stating that he's cool with it because he doesn't fall into one of these groups says a lot about who he is as a person. Ugh, have you actually thought about this? From some of your responses, OP, here is what you were saying. My best man and his wife are against interracial marriages, but haven't said anything about my interracial marriage. Because my minority wife is of a minority they don't deem less than other minorities. I find it interesting that you don't mention anything about this in your main post. Your fiancé knows that they are judging the hell out of her, you don't want to rock the boat with your friends, but what are you saying to your fiancé? Your bigoted friend's feelings are more important to you than her being comfortable on her wedding day? Remember that they will be in many pictures, and every time she looks at them, she will be reminded of that. And now, on to the updates. I read all the comments from last thread, including the ones that I didn't reply to. There were some strong points made, and it got me thinking. I talked to my fiancé about best man and his wife. It took some digging to get the truth out of her. She's not very political or vocal about social issues, and clearly didn't want to discuss them. I talked to her one night, hit a wall, gave up, and tried again a week later. It finally came out that best man and his wife have expressed opinions about her that I was not aware of. Among other things, topics mentioned were 1. How Asians are taking over American universities in some places, and how this should be curbed. 2. How our mixed-race kids are going to be confused about their identity, and that children should have a unified nuclear family. 3. How their parents speak with an accent, even though both of my fiancé's parents are highly educated professionals, and their English is pretty darn good, especially considering they learned it in their 30s. As well as some other less savory stuff not specific to East Asians. So it turns out a lot of the comments were correct in speculating that my best friend and his wife were secretly a lot more bigoted than they let on in front of me. It was shocking everything my fiancé told me came out of their mouths when I wasn't around. But at the same time, I'm not completely surprised. Throughout our entire friendship, I've just kind of willfully ignored the aspects of his beliefs that made me uncomfortable and prided myself on being able to stay friends with someone who didn't share the same opinions as me. About a month before the wedding, I asked my cousin to step up to be best man. It was kinda half-assed. This cousin is not super close to me, but he was the only male relative I could ask. It didn't go over too well, but my fiancé and I were both more relaxed at the wedding than we would have been otherwise. Sometime after the wedding, we were talking about my friend, and my wife came clean with one more thing. He had hit on her pretty aggressively at several points in the past, and one of these incidents happened when I was out of state for a while. This was while he was with his wife. I cut contact with both of them after that. I told him why, and left it to him to explain it to his wife, if he does. TLDR, the wedding happened, pulled family rank to get my cousin to replace friend as best man. We are no longer in contact with former best friend and his wife. My former best friend's preaching of family values turns out to be a load of hypocritical bullshit. My new wife and I are doing fine. In the comments, a deleted user says, "Sounds like you stepped up and supported your wife and did the right thing." OP replies, "Thanks. I just can't believe my wife would have just kept this to herself if I hadn't pried hard enough." I'm really glad you've seen the true colors of this couple, but to be honest, I totally see why your wife didn't tell you sooner. Previously, your attitude had been, "I'm not gay, so who cares if they are homophobic," so it's not a big leap to assume that you wouldn't care about their racism since you were white. The attitude of, "I don't care how BM and BMW treat others as long as they treat me well," obviously made her feel like confiding in you would be a risk since you weren't the only one they were judging. OP replies, "Their attitudes did make me uncomfortable, to be honest. Reading back on the old post now, and after what happened, I can see clear as day that I was in denial and rationalizing away their behavior so that I could stay friends with them. It's great that you understand this and own up to it. In the future though, if your wife or future children are uncomfortable due to racism, you need to take them seriously." Quote, "My former best friend's preaching of family values turns out to be a load of hypocritical bullshit." In my observation, this is true of most people who preach family values. I'm proud of you for having the hard conversation with your wife and cutting the poison out of your life. OP says, "I believe in psychology. This is called reaction formation. It's an immature defense mechanism. Coming to this thread late, but we're not gay isn't a good excuse to ignore someone's homophobia. There's politics, which is shit like gun controls and taxes, and then there is morally and illegally subjugating an entire class of people who have no real effect on you just because you think everyone should be exactly like you. How you treat other people is paramount to your character, and Christians who espouse love thy neighbor while maligning entire categories of people are conflicted and lying to themselves on a very basic level." Sounds like you've seen their true colors though. But keep in mind, empathy doesn't require you to be of a group to do what's right. Congrats on your marriage and awesome wife. Cheers. OP replies, "I was raised Christian, but it was the hypocrisy of many Christians like this that eventually turned me away from my faith. But even so, I failed to recognize this very hypocrisy in my closest friend and myself. It's amazing how blind we are to people close to us." So they were homophobic, racist, horrible people, and you knew that before you knew anything they'd specifically said to your wife. Whether your wife told you all this or not, what in the world were you thinking? OP says, I wasn't okay with it. I just put my head in the sand and avoided thinking about it. I didn't want to reconcile my image of what my friends were with what they were saying. Yes, it took them hitting closer to home for me to stop sweeping it under the rug, but I was never okay with their opinions. What else did he say when you told him that you couldn't be friends with him anymore? Also, these people sound like effing assholes. OP replies, at the time, I was riding on anger that he had been hitting on my wife, so I opened with that. There was a lot of denial and anger on his part, and he tried to make it out like my fiancé is crazy and a pathological liar, or at the very least that she was attention-seeking and misinterpreting his motives, which is bullshit. She is none of those things. Things got heated, and he made a sort of, I'm not sure, racially charged comment. Unfortunately, he never left physical proof like incriminating texts, so it was basically her word against his. Then he tried to spin the family values angle, and I told him to take care of his own house before preaching to others. We never got quite to the bigotry thing. He had blown up before we could, and I couldn't make myself heard. Misinterpreting? What was his spin on it? OP says, I'm not sure. He was trying to say that she made it out to be way more than it was. For example, the time I was out of town, my fiancé said he tried to invite himself over, just him alone, and she came up with some concocted family emergency to avoid playing host. I don't really see how that's all that inappropriate, so I asked him that, and our conversation got confusing and incoherent. There was just a lot of yelling and denying on his part, but not a whole lot of explaining that made sense. It tripped my BS sensor, and I wasn't terribly inclined to believe anything else he said. Am I the asshole for telling my sister that she shouldn't overvalue herself and prepare for the worst? I, 21 female, have an older sister, Eve, 29 female, who had her first child, Laurie, 1 female, and while this should be a time of joy and excitement, there's actually a lot of tension and brewing resentment between her, our mum, and her husband Jack, 29 male. Despite it being unplanned, Eve's pregnancy was wanted, and Jack was an involved partner. He went to most of Eve's appointments, took the birthing classes, and supported Eve's decision to just have our mum in the room while he waited outside when she gave birth. The plan was for our mum to be by Eve's side in the room and to help stay for a week after Laurie was born. Everyone was cool with this, but unfortunately our aunt got into some drama with her husband in another state, and our mum rushed over to be at her sister's side. Eve was already in her 3rd trimester, so Jack didn't like the idea of our mum going, and he voiced it. Our mum tore Jack a new one, and Eve even got in his case about it, so he apologized. However, Eve ended up going into labor, and Jack ultimately was the one in the room while our mum was away. When she called, our mum expressed being sad over not being there for the birth of her first grandchild, and she and Eve decided that no one else in the family would see Laurie until she got back, without discussing it with Jack. He was understandably not happy, as his mum lived 45 minutes away and was looking forward to meeting Laurie too, as she was the first grandchild on both sides. Eve pulled the "I just gave birth" card, and Jack reluctantly allowed it. On the day that our mum was supposed to come back, she missed her flight and couldn't get a new one until the following morning. Our mum could have just rented a car, but she didn't want to spend the money since the airline wouldn't refund the money. Jack brought up allowing his mum to come once again, but Eve refused, citing that he already agreed. Unfortunately, Jack's mum was in a car accident and passed before ever getting to meet Laurie, since Eve wouldn't even allow a video chat. Jack was distraught. He moved to the guest bedroom, went to the funeral alone, and refuses to engage with Eve at all. Jack's side of the family keeps calling and messaging Eve to tell her what a selfish and awful person she is, and Jack refuses to defend. Eventually, Eve got sick of it and packed up and left to our mum's house to teach Jack a lesson, but he hasn't texted or called. Our mum did think that he just needs some space and that he will call soon, but I just laughed at that. I didn't mean to, though. My mum and Eve asked me why I laughed, and I tried to brush it off or even leave, but they wouldn't let me and pressed for an answer. Eventually, I told her that while the accident wasn't her fault, she did keep Lori away from Jack's mum meeting her for a week, and now she never will. There is no way that Jack is ever going to love you enough to forgive that, and that you should prepare for the worst. Eve started to bawl her eyes out while Mum berated me, so I left. Am I the asshole? Edits. Just to clarify, I keep seeing this when the accident first happened. Eve has apologized 3 separate times. Jack has admitted to this, and Eve intended to go to the funeral with him, but he drove off without her. Jack does interact with Lori, it is Eve that he's icing out, and my niece is the only thing he's willing to talk to Eve about. Jack had been living in the guest room for 5 months before Eve left. She's offered to go to couples counseling, but Jack has refused. In the comments, what was up with your aunt? OP says, to be fair, it wasn't a small thing. My aunt's husband was revealed to be cheating and used her personal information to take out credit cards in her name to pay for his side piece, plus the potential danger of her own health. You're the asshole. You were completely right, but you were an asshole to mention it. Why rub it in and cause drama? You should have kept silent. Staying out of it would have been the reasonable option. They needed someone to blame. Why offer yourself up for that? OP says, I tried to brush it off and walk away, but they physically stood in front of my way and they demanded an answer. If she's still bad-mouthing him, she obviously didn't mean it, the apology, with an understanding of what exactly she did wrong. I hope Jake is well supported by his family and can see his daughter soon. OP replies, Eve hasn't bad-mouthed him, at least to me, since his mum's accident. But she's frustrated that he no longer is affectionate and doesn't engage with her like before. You're the asshole. Sorry, but are you married? A parent? In love? In a relationship? No? Then maybe put a cork in it. Why would you say something like that? It was incredibly vindictive and nasty. She is a new mother going through ish, and you could have been compassionate, even civil. You laughing at someone's misfortunes, much less your sister, says a lot about your character. Her husband may never forgive her, but that's not on her. To be honest, it would be hard to forgive you for kicking her when she was down, so there's that. OP says, married? No. A parent? No. In love? Yes. In a relationship? Also yes. And please read the post again. Lori is now a year old, and Jack's mum died when she was less than 3 weeks old. This has been an ongoing issue for months, and I tried to not say anything and even walk away in order to be civil, but my mum and sister kept pressing me for an answer. Part of a longer comment, someone says, why didn't Jack just let his mother come anyway? I'm amazed he put up with that bullshit. He sounds like a treasure of a husband, and Eve really screwed herself by treating him and his family like that. OP replies, because it was just supposed to be 1 week. No one saw this accident coming, and Jack didn't want to stress out my sister, who had just given birth. He was trying to respect their wishes and got screwed over because of it. The fact that your sister wouldn't even allow a FaceTime, that is some ridiculous petty bullshit. She deserves to be a struggling single mum for that choice alone. I wouldn't blame Jack for being the type of co-parent who will only co-parent through a phone app. Jesus effing Christ. OP says, yeah, I think her being pregnant made her lose touch with reality and logic a little bit. She's usually understanding and reasonable. On Eve's apologies and Mum's apologies, OP says, from what she told me, it was a, I'm sorry I did X the first time, and then, I'm sorry, but I didn't know that Y would happen. And then, I'm sorry, but we can ... My mum did reach out to give her condolences for Jack's mum's passing, but I don't know if she apologized for insisting on being the first grandparent to see the baby. Also, I know that Eve apologized at least 3 separate times, but it could have been more. I honestly don't know. Fantastic Mango says, probably would get downvoted, but who cares? Not the asshole. Your mum showed time and time again that her first granddaughter isn't that important to her. The fact that Jack's mum would never meet her niece is something that Jack would never get over, and he is right. His mum was denied access because the other grandmother would rather cater to her adult sister than meeting her granddaughter. That woman died with the wish to see her first granddaughter. Jack and the rest of the family are never going to forgive your sister for this. Hopefully they won't take it out on the baby. Damn, every bit of this story is just sad. Eve sure is delusional. The fact that Jack didn't just let his mum come from the start is amazing. It is incredibly unfair to impose this. However, this mix of emotions, newborn plus mother dying, must be overwhelming. I hope someone's keeping an eye on Jack. I'm squarely in the camp of not the asshole here for OP. I think it's been quite a while since all of these incidents happened, and I do think that she shouldn't overvalue herself. I do think that she should prepare for the worst. From what you're saying, she hasn't done anything to genuinely prove that she was sorry and that she's remorseful for everything happening here. I'm sorry, but is not okay, especially in situations like this. Like, stop with the excuses and the bullshit. Keeping your children from a grandmother because someone else wants to see the kid first is not okay. Gatekeeping is so annoying, and sure, it can be okay in some situations, but when it's a grandchild, what's the point? Obviously, no one could have envisioned the grandmother dying before getting to see the child, but that just rubs even more salt in the wound, does it not? This is such a shit show all around, and you'd think common sense would tell the sister to be more apologetic and try to be more of a, oh shit, I really messed up, let's fix this. But she hasn't, from what I can tell. So I'm staying with a not the asshole for this one. And now, onto the update. Hey, it's been a couple of weeks, and due to people still occasionally asking, I thought I'd give people some quick updates on the situation. Here are the basic bullet points. My sister has now been officially diagnosed with postpartum depression, and that is the trump card / Hail Mary of the situation. My sister and her husband are living together and are in couples therapy. My sister is in individual counseling. My niece has now been officially introduced to a few members of her paternal side, and they all love her. Jack's family have ceased their negative comments about my sister, but she says that they are still pretty formal and distant towards her. I honestly don't know if she'll ever be in their good graces again, and will only put up with her for my brother-in-law and niece's sake. My niece's first name and middle is going to be legally changed to whatever Jack wants. For the next 5 years, brother-in-law's side of the family is getting priority when it comes to any and all holidays. My mum will be on a strict info diet when it comes to the baby, no pictures unless Jack approves. This is all I know for right now, and my mum is not happy with any of this and is calling Jack a controlling asshole. But my sister is holding firm in an effort to save her marriage. She claims that brother-in-law and her are making progress in counseling, and I hope for her sake that it's true. It's gonna suck not to be able to see my niece as much as I wanted for the next possible few years, but compared to never being able to see her at all, like Jack's mum, it is what it is. I know a lot of you may not be happy with this update, but it is what it is for now. OP's thoughts on the situation. I won't deny that Jack is taking full advantage of Eve's willingness to do whatever it takes to save the marriage, but Jack has never come off as a controlling person in the past. I mean, he didn't put up any opposition to Eve's requests / demands since finding out she was pregnant. But Eve has a support system if she feels like it's getting to be too much. I'm not going to get involved until I suspect violence. And to a different commenter, OP says, I won't deny that Jack is taking advantage of the situation. He's hurt and angry and very resentful. He laid out his terms and Eve is agreeing to them. Plus they're in counseling. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. In the comments, it doesn't read to me that OP is being restricted. OP is free to visit their niece. Jack's family just gets priority for holidays, and it seems like OP's family assumed that they would get the majority of them, hence, won't see kid as often as I'd like to. OP says, yes, it's just the holidays for our side of the family. Right now, I could drive up to see my niece, so long as I call first. What's the issue with the baby's name? Was Jack railroaded over that as well? OP says, from my understanding, Eve got to pick the first name and Jack got to pick the middle name from a list of names that Eve had, and my niece took Jack's surname. To appease Jack, he didn't really get much of a say over naming the baby. My sister really played the whole, I'm the one carrying the baby card. I don't get why your contact with your niece has to be limited. I'm not sure the marriage will last anyways with these conditions. OP replies, Right now, it seems like Eve is just doing whatever she has to do to keep Jack from leaving her, as well as getting back on Jack's family's good side. I don't know how to feel about this. Changing the baby's name after a year to whatever the husband wants, priority for holidays for 5 years, no pictures for your mum unless Jack approves of it. This seems like jumping from the frying pan directly into the fire. If these are the terms set up by Jack in order to save the marriage, 1. I doubt the marriage counselor knows about these specific ones I mentioned, and 2. Is it even worth saving? Your sister has no autonomy over the child, no autonomy over her schedule, no ability to share a photo with her mother. You have limited contact with your niece. Who really won here other than Jack and his family, who might someday be nice to your sister? Yes, your sister was wrong in the original post. Of course she was. But not one thing on this list can change what happened. Not one. And parts of this list sound like they could lead to some DV situations in the future on Jack's part. Isolation from support systems is one of those factors. OP replies, Jack's mum suddenly passed away, and she was a loving and sweet person. I wouldn't exactly call it a win. Also, from what Eve told me, it's not isolation so much as strict boundaries. Eve said that these restrictions were only for the baby and that she's still able to have regular contact with whoever she chooses. Yikes! What a hard overcorrection. I can't imagine them ever getting back on the right footing again after this. Eve will lose herself with guilt and trying to keep the family together, and Jack will lose himself in trying to forgive but also punish Eve for what he lost. At that point, it's not two people in love. It's just two people filled with resentment and trying to make it work. And OP replies, they're going to couples counseling is all I can respond with. We'll see what happens. OP sounds disgusting too. Calling PPD a card the sister will play? Shame on you, OP. OP replies, I refer to it as a card because of how my sister is using her diagnosis with Jack. She literally said, he can't be angry with me. I have PPD. In response to someone asking if she really has it, no, it's real and I do believe her because her personality did change the further she got into her pregnancy. It's just the way my sister is using her diagnosis that made me word it the way that I did. She's very, he can't stay angry with me, I have PPD, and he has to forgive me, I'm not mentally well. Is the postpartum diagnosis what made him to be willing to work it out? I'm not sure how that was connected to what she did. OP says, I mean, he wasn't open to couples counseling before the official diagnosis. I don't know what to say. I'm feeling kind of like I want to cry and I'm disgusted about this situation and how it turned out because that's not at all what I thought was going to happen here. I agree. That was a huge overcorrection. It does seem very restricting. And like I can understand where Jack is coming from with those ones, but I don't think that's a reason to be so constricting on the relationship with both families. And at the same time, what the hell is wrong with her saying, you can't be mad at me, I have PPD. You have to forgive me. You have to forgive me. I'm not mentally well. And at the same time, I can see the reasoning for him only agreeing to couples counseling because of the official diagnosis. But everything here is just so mentally unstable and just unstable in general. But I'm sure marriages have survived worse than this. There have been tougher times. But God is really giving his toughest challenge to this couple right now. If they can survive this, they can survive anything. You know, hats off to them. From the outside looking in, it just looks like this boat is going to sink. But I really wish them all the best in the future with this one. Maybe OP's words of advice here rang true, and she really is just going to work so hard on her marriage to keep it from sinking. And if in 5 years things can go back to relative normality and you guys can keep a good atomic family structure of some sort for the sake of the kid, go ahead and, you know, let 1,000 blossoms bloom. Good luck, OP's sister. Good luck. Our next post is by user Interest Generals, titled, Am I the asshole here for not celebrating my birthday with my wife after she cancelled our honeymoon this year for her solo trip to Europe? My wife, 32 female, and I, 33 male, got married a couple of months ago, and my wife went on a solo trip to Europe. She's always wanted to do the solo trip, but she never had the time to do so because of work. However, she used the honeymoon time for her solo trip. I wanted to accompany her to her trip, but she said that she needed this for her mental health, and I ultimately agreed, even though I was sad about it. She thanked me many times for being understanding of this, but I put it to the back of my mind and tried not to think too much about it because I was really excited about our wedding. The wedding was great, and my wife left for her trip to Europe the next day. I really missed my wife, and it affected my mental health. My wife came back home on my birthday last Thursday, but I was out of town celebrating it with my sibling, 31 female. When my wife texted me asking where I was, I told her that I would come back on the weekend. I came back home on Sunday feeling extremely happy, but my wife said that she wished she could have celebrated my birthday with me because she had planned something special. I told her I definitely would for next year, but this year, I needed to celebrate it with someone else for my own mental health. Was I the asshole? In the comments, for her mental health? Alone? Away from the man that she married 24 hours prior? What about his mental health? Crap, now my mental health is taking a hit just thinking about how utterly messed up this is. OP replies, I understand from the outside perspective the optics aren't great, but my wife has been wanting to go on a solo trip to Europe for more than a decade. It's been her lifelong dream, and she finally had the chance to do so, and I completely trust her and love her. But it's also affected my mental health because I really missed her, and I wanted to spend my honeymoon with her. But to be honest, I had the best birthday ever. My sister got me out of my funk, and I feel so refreshed and happy now. But my wife seems a bit down that she could not celebrate my birthday with me. 2N Pack says, so your new wife left for Europe by herself for 2+ months the day after you got married? She couldn't have split that time up with you, do a couple of weeks solo and then have you meet up with her? Sounds fishy AF. Why did she even get married if she still needs to do the solo thing? That makes zero sense. OP should go for annulment. It is a shame that she could not have decided that she wanted to be a solo person before they got married. I hate that she continues to be so selfish, complaining that he wasn't home when she got back, as she wanted to do something special for his birthday. Ooh, now you care about spending time with your husband? Screw you. You didn't care about him for the 2 months or whatever you were screwing around in Europe by yourself. OP, be sure to get an STI test done. Not the asshole. She used your honeymoon for herself and then gets upset that you spent time with someone who was there for you? This would be different if it was just a random trip she took on her own and not replacing a trip that is meant to be your private wedding celebration. I'm glad you spent your birthday with someone who wants to be around you. I can't help but think how embarrassing that must have been to respond to constantly at the wedding. So where are you two leaving for your honeymoon tomorrow? The bride's going to Europe and I'm staying home. I really want to know if he funded it too. He mentions she could never go before and used their honeymoon to go. So I wonder if she just married him for the money. It says in the post that she never had the time because of work, which I get because my old boss denied vacation after vacation, then one of my co-workers gets married and he gets 2 weeks in a row vacation time out of a boss that was usually only letting vacations run for no more than 4 days. Back up to the post, there is an edit. I think people are misunderstanding what I've asked. I didn't ask if my wife was wrong in taking a trip. I asked if I was wrong to not celebrate my birthday with her. My wife did go on a solo trip, we were in constant contact, and she had a blast there. She had a lot of fun. We FaceTimed each other every night. However, I did miss her badly, and I'm thankful my sister got me out of my funk, but in the process, I sort of ghosted my wife. I sent only a couple of texts when she landed home and when she wished me happy birthday. And I barely responded to her texts the next few days, and then didn't pick up any of her calls till I got back home on Sunday. But ever since I've come home, she's been feeling a bit down, and I'm feeling a bit guilty about it. OP, how do you write sentences like this and not see how dysfunctional your communication has been with her? Do you ever look into why you feel that way? Like, I understand feeling that way, and I understand your actions, absolutely, but why? Deep down, why did you feel the need to ghost her for those days? Where did that come from? If I were in your shoes, I would be so deeply upset that my wife decided that our honeymoon time was for her. Like, what did you say to people at your wedding when they asked about the honeymoon? I would be so embarrassed. I'd be kind of hurt, being like, you know what? Yeah, I've agreed to this. And it's really cool that a honeymoon that's meant for us is going to be used for her alone, and she's going to disappear for 2 months. Did you kind of bury those feelings for 2 months and then have them crop back up when she got back into the country? I don't think you're an asshole at all for that. I'm very much on your side, but why did all of this have to happen in the first place? Why couldn't she have just gone to Europe before or after the wedding, after you guys had a honeymoon together? Make it make sense. And now, on to the update. So yes, reading the comments, I do now realize that my wife taking a trip to Europe right after our wedding was just not good. I still love my wife and we've been together for more than a decade, but I'm now having second doubts. Also because my family never really liked her, but I always ignored what they said because I was probably too in love. I showed the Reddit post to my wife and all the comments, and she didn't have much to say. She only apologized and said that it was insensitive of her to take that trip. I told her that I wanted a temporary break. I work remote, so I can work from anywhere in the country. I'm flying out to my sister's house next week, and I'll probably stay there for at least a month. I told my wife that I just needed some space from her. My wife was pretty shocked, but I told her that ever since she's come home, she's just been a downer, even though she had an amazing trip, and I need some time away from her. In the comments, Joe Renemo says, "So to sum it up, your newlywed wife left the day after your wedding using your honeymoon time for a 2-month European vacation without you, and then is disappointed she didn't get to spend a day with you and is now shocked that you'll be leaving her for a month? Yeah, I see this going well." What killed me was, I showed her my Reddit post and comments and she didn't have much to say? Like, what the hell? How is Opie so nonchalant about this? He's basically just a walking shrug emoji. He's Oppenheimer looking at the nuclear blast. He's just nonplussed. Just straight thugging it out. He could be in shock and still processing all this, especially if his family has always said he's more/too in love with her. I just feel bad for Opie. I just can't believe she left him the day after their wedding and was gone for 2 months. She obviously still views herself as single and not part of a partnership. Probably married him for the financial benefits and security. She probably only apologized because she saw that her husband learned how toxic she was being, and she's worried about losing her investments. OP should get an annulment. I'm stunned he was so blasé about this. He sounds oh so naive. It's sad. This is still a very much fresh story, and there is no conclusive update to it for now, but I think we can all see where this is going, and I really don't think it'll be as drastic as the first post in this episode. But, you know, reality is often stranger than fiction. You really had me going there in the second half of this one though, OP. I love my wife, but my family never really liked her. I was too in love. I showed her the Reddit post in the comments and she didn't have anything to say. Oh, she just apologized, but she's still upset at me for disappearing for a month because that's seemingly somehow worse than her disappearing for 2 months in your honeymoon time. Holy shit, you two are sitting inside the Titanic submersible just waiting for it to implode and crush this marriage. You are definitely going through some shock, my man. There is no way that you don't react to all of this, and that she doesn't react either. As famous philosophers said, just internalize everything. The more you internalize it all, the more your problems will all disappear. That's how we deal with situations like this. But yes, please get some time away from her, and if I were you, I'd annul the marriage, because did you even get time to consummate it? Because that could be a good little out that you've got there for yourself, but I wish you guys all the best in this one, because that is so messy. 2 really messy marriages in today's episode, huh? I tried to warn the bride that her bridesmaid's dresses wouldn't work for me, but she insisted, and now she's pissed because I look like the bride. I'm supposed to be the maid of honor tonight for a wedding. My husband is the best man, and we've been friends with this couple for a long time. The problem is now I'm being kicked out for being black, and my husband wants to step down as the best man because of it, and it's causing a whole thing. To clarify, because it's important, the bride is not racist in any way. She's just kinda dumb for refusing to listen. My skin color is the issue, but not because she has a problem with it overall, but just because she didn't realize that my skin would make a dress look different on me than on others. She's had this vision for her wedding forever, apparently. Her bridesmaid's dresses are nearly identical to her wedding dress in style, except for a different color. And on the bridesmaid's dresses, the detailing stops at the waist, and they are not laced up in the back. My dress as maid of honor is nearly an exact carbon copy of hers, just in the other color. Here's where it gets to be a mess. She picked this color the company calls morning gray for her bridesmaids' dresses. Morning gray, for anyone wondering, is like a soft pastel gray that's about a shade of white. On the other bridesmaids, the dress looks absolutely gray. A very soft, very ethereal gray, but a gray nonetheless. All the other bridesmaids are also white. I'm not only black, but as I've been to the beach for another wedding this year, I'm darker than I normally am. Against my skin, the dress undeniably looks white. Like the only way you can tell mine is actually gray is if I'm standing directly next to the bride and the dresses are side by side. Then you can see that mine is slightly gray and hers isn't. The bride ordered all of the dresses and picked the color herself. I tried to tell her that she should order mine in a darker shade of gray because I've been down this road before where I've been accused of wearing white at a wedding because a dress I wore looked white in the sunlight even though it wasn't. She insisted that she had her cousin try it on and the color was perfect and you could easily tell that it was gray. I tried to explain to her that her cousin is the color of printer paper and that it would look different on me, but she was unwilling to have her vision modified. Now she's pissed at me because even it's clear hanging with the other dresses, mine is the same color as the other bridesmaids. She has decided the only option is to kick me out of the wedding so that I don't upstage her. However, she wants me to give my dress to one of the other bridesmaids, which I said I was fine with as soon as she reimbursed me the money for it. $350 compared to the rest of the bridesmaids who paid about $125. But then one of the bridesmaids promptly pointed out that none of them could even wear my dress. I'm not huge, but I am incredibly top-heavy. I wear a 34H bra, which is part of why my dress was so much more expensive than the other bridesmaids. The other part being the extra detailing, so none of the other bridesmaids would be able to keep my dress up, even if the lacing was pulled as tight as it would go. So now she's decided that I have ruined her perfect wedding, screamed at me, and told me that not only am I not in the wedding, but she doesn't even want me to attend as a guest. Which pissed my husband off because A, she was warned, I even sent her photos of a dress that I wore that was almost the same color to a different wedding, and B, because he doesn't want to attend a wedding that we traveled for without me, and he thinks that it's bullshit since she insisted on the dress color. In the comments, Smart Imagination 58 says, 1000% not your fault. People have no idea about brown girl friendly colors and color theory. How a color can work one way on one skin tone and completely different on another, despite being the exact same color. The bride is an idiot and stubborn to the point of hateful ignorance. Count your blessings that she showed you her true colors now and not way later into your friendship. Yeah, ditch the friendship completely. Frankly, given that you're unlikely to get reimbursed for that dress, I would toss it in a fire pit with some kerosene, send her pictures of the bonfire, and then block her everywhere. Nah, sell it, go out to a nice dinner, and send the Bridezilla pictures of that. So you ruined her wedding because, checks notes, you're a human and not all humans are alike. To avoid this in the future, don't be a human. Try being some sort of a strange chameleon cross-human species mix so that you can change your skin tone to blend better with the bride's requirements. Quote, my skin color is the issue, but not because she has a problem with it overall, but just because she didn't realize that my skin would make a dress look different on me than others. Except you did tell her, and she ignored you because a white girl looks fine in the dress. That may not be racist on purpose, but she did deliberately ignore your lived experience in favor of her own imagination, and when she was proven wrong, she lashed out at you instead of accepting that she screwed up and working with you to find a solution. That is incredibly revealing. She does not respect you, and it is because of your race. I'm sorry, OP. What an ugly experience. I hope you and your husband find something lovely and relaxing to do that day. Please don't fight him on the decision to drop out. It is a completely fair and reasonable decision in the face of the bride's ignorance and cruelty. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with that one, and I don't really buy OP saying that it wasn't racist, because it's literally about the color of your skin. It is incredibly revealing, and I do think that this is a racist thing that she is doing. Sure, she's not donning a hood and walking down the street in protest of your skin color, but she is excluding you because of your skin color for a mistake that she made. That to me is inherently racist, and she's a gigantic asshole for doing this. It's embarrassing enough to have a situation like this crop up, but it's doubly so for her to double down on this. Like, do you have no self-respect? How does this look to everyone else around you that the only black bridesmaid is getting excluded? But not because of anything that she did wrong. It was your mistake as the bride. This is just so bad. I'd really be questioning my friendship with this person after this experience. I wouldn't be going to the wedding, and I'd keep them on a tight leash if I wanted to keep them in my life. Also, if I were the groom, I'd really be questioning things, that's for sure. Like, who am I going to marry? Does she not have any self-awareness or respect? And now, on to the update. This is for everyone who is asking what happened. So, after I posted, things got ugly and the groom called everything off. I initially offered to dye the dress, since I was the only person not getting my hair done, as my hair has been damaged more than once by stylists who don't know how to handle the texture, so I'm very limited in who I'll let do it, and instead usually do it myself. The groom thought that this was a great idea, and even offered to pay for the stuff needed to dye it, and let me use his parents' place to do it. While he went to go talk to his parents though, my now ex nixed that because then I would stand out even more. So I asked what she meant by stand out even more, and a whole lot of truth came out. Apparently, she initially hadn't wanted me in the wedding at all, but her ex-fiancé is one of my oldest and best friends, and my husband was, note the past tense, one of hers. That's why we introduced them to each other in the first place, because we thought they would hit it off, and they did. Anyway, because my husband was the closest thing that she has to a sibling, she really wanted him to be the man of honor at their wedding, and initially, ex-groom said that that was fine, and he would just have me as a best woman so things would look balanced, and the two men didn't have to walk down the aisle or whatever. She really didn't like that, so they decided to switch us up. No big deal. Except, apparently it was, because I'm the only person of color in the whole wedding party, and one of the very few who will be at the wedding at all, and I'm going to stand out in every single picture. I asked her what about the groom's parents. The groom is white, but he's adopted by a black couple, and is quite close to both his biological and adoptive parents, but if you ask who his parents are, he always says the people who raised him. Her theory was that his biological parents would be in the pictures, not his adoptive parents. Well, when the groom came back and heard this, he flipped out, and then she said the dumbest thing she could have. Apparently, it's not his fault he had no control over who adopted him, and the pictures should just be real family. Oh my god. Well, at that point, the groom had heard enough, and told her that they were his real family, and he couldn't believe she would say that. She was not the person he thought she was, and he was not marrying her. She gets pissed and tells him that he's being ridiculous, but his parents can be in some of the photos, and they will take some without. He tells her again that he is in no way, shape, manner, or form marrying her after what he'd heard, and in fact, he wants nothing to do with her. She gets upset and says, well, she's at least going to have fun at the reception. He reminds her that he and his parents paid for everything, including the reception, and she is not welcome, and he will be informing the security of that fact. The bride runs off to tell her parents what he's saying and doing, so they come out guns blazing and all to confront him, but apparently she didn't give them all the facts, because when he laid it out for them, they were appalled. Her father literally tore her a new one, talking about how she was not raised that way, and he couldn't believe that this was the person she had become. They apologized to the groom, offered to pay for half of the wedding, and they left with their daughter. So we spent the afternoon with the groom, several of the bridesmaids, and all of the groomsmen, who were all equally shocked by her behavior. I'd say we were consoling the groom, but we weren't. He was too busy ranting about dodging a bullet. Last night, we went to the reception, partied until like 3 a.m., and had a great time. As for the dress, I have an event later this summer, and I'm going to dye the dress and wear it for that. In the comments, I'm sorry that you all had to find out that she was a horrible person, but thank goodness it was discovered before the wedding and before kids. The ex must be breathing a sigh of relief, but how is your husband going? You stated that your husband is the closest thing she has to a sibling, so he must be a combination of furious and heartbroken. I'm so glad you all had a blast at the reception, and I hope that everyone was also petty enough to share the heck out of the pictures on their socials with a caption. Something like, living the best life now that the trash has been taken out. Best of luck to your friend. OP replies, my husband will probably be sad later because they had been friends for so long, but right now he's just disgusted that he was friends with someone who thought like that. Like, she was in our wedding. I think furious and heartbroken is absolutely accurate. Quote, to clarify because it's important, the bride is not racist in any way. She's gonna be a big fat racist, isn't she? My eyes about fell out of my head when I got to only the groom's bio parents being in the photos. The bride isn't racist, it just doesn't fit her wedding aesthetic. What theme are you going for here? Like early winter? Monochrome chic? I was going for more racist with hints of bigotry. The thing about racists is very few of them actually think they are racist. You don't take their word for it, you look at their words, actions, and behavior. I guarantee you this woman doesn't think she's a racist, she just wants the perfect pictures, and she is oblivious to the fact that saying the presence of black people means the photos won't be perfect is racist. This is a worse problem when you try to talk about implicit bias and things like that, even on progressive subs, hinting that most people have negative bias they aren't aware of about people of other ethnicities, get people mad. It's literally impossible to not have them, because that's how our brains work. And also, we live in a racist, homophobic, sexist society. The important thing is to acknowledge that, so when those biases pop up, you're prepared to realize them and consciously discard them. Well, it appears as though OP's friend was not prepared to discard them. In fact, she was more than willing to act on them. I would hope that for the most part, when something this bad happens, it's a wake-up call and genuine change can be made in a person's life like that, but more often than not, I feel like people kind of double down in stubbornness and things like that. And I'll admit, that's a personal bias of mine. I feel like what I see in the world is people doubling down on shitty attitudes. Although that's not always the case, and I'm happy to be proven otherwise. But really, my assumption is that she doesn't learn from this. Maybe she just gets better at hiding it in the future and tiptoeing around subjects like this better. It's not a great ending for her. It's a big waste of time for everyone, but at least they can cut someone that's let their mask slip out of their life. And I think that's overall a very good thing to hear. So onwards and upwards, OP. Wishing you all the best of luck in the future. Our next post is by user That Last by Unicorn, titled, Am I the asshole for not giving my boyfriend a threesome? I, female 29, met my boyfriend Michael, male 35, at a show that I performed in. I'm a theatre person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We've been together now for a little over a year. My sister got married last week, and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me, but I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much, and said so, and it developed into a petty Cold War, and he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all the day before the wedding, asking what time he needed to pick me up, since we can't separate, otherwise people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception, he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me, but I shied away, and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after, and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction, but had my pen, but still had to be carted off by the ambulance, and that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called him 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested that I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up, so I woke up my best friend and she took me home and stayed with me overnight and made sure that I was okay. The next morning Michael called me, but I was still asleep. So he left a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me that he should just break up with me at this point, as I am dramatic and this is all too much. So I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying that it was, and what the ingredients were, as I am not the only person with allergies that attended. He then left, telling me that he can't talk to me when I'm this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered, he then told me how I am hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I didn't respect him even in intimate settings or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me, this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there. So to have him tell me that I'm in the wrong threw me. Am I the asshole here? In the comments, oh she aims to misbehave says, Opie, to be honest, have you, now that you're looking back, seen red flags like this? This behavior likely didn't just show up. Have you ever been ill after a disagreement with him? Opie replies, oddly enough, I'm sitting with my BFF, and she asked me the same question, and yes actually. Our first real argument that I can remember, I was down with a stomach bug for almost a week, and he visited me and made me soup. Then the only big argument I can recall outside of this one, he wanted to use labels really soon onto us going on some dates, and I didn't. And the next morning, I was sick with chest pains and stomach cramps. I don't want to sound dramatic or accusatory, but since people have commented, he might have purposefully given me something that I'm allergic to. I just don't know anymore. Friendly Sam says, tell his dad about the threesome request. That should end it. Yes, please tell his dad about the request and the fact that he brought it up when he knew that he had made you sick. OP says, I gotta say the thought made me chuckle, but my anxiety could never. Tell the sister that her brother is apparently so mad that you won't have a threesome that he poisoned you and nearly ruined her wedding. Oh hell no. He basically assaulted you, giving you food he knew that you could not eat. And he's trying to make it seem like it's your fault for having a reaction and had to go to the hospital. And then before any of that dust can settle, he is still pushing you for a three-way, even after you said no. Please, for your sake, cut him out of your life, because things will only get worse from here. Yeah, he sounds like a legit sociopath at best. Michael is gaslighting you, and his father probably doesn't know the truth. He legit gave you a known allergen. You do know that he can be arrested for attempted murder, right? Go file a report, not the asshole. Back up to the post, there is an edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I've actually never considered that he gave me something I'm allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our arguments. but I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Small update, Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out, and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed the plate that he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know that I was in the hospital and feels bad that he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off some much-needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He's now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit, for any and all of you calling me stupid or implying that I'm a child, and why am I still with this guy, etc., just know that you remind me a lot of him and how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Yeah, I feel like all of this stuff that he was saying there was just lies. You were not so stressed out that you forgot that she had an allergen. That is such a lie. You did not mean to give her the plate meant for you. That is a lie. He didn't know you were at the hospital. He feels bad that he wasn't there. Oh, did he not see all of the missed calls and text messages and probably all the calls and texts from everyone else around there that probably would have also been messaging the groomsmen to get to you? Did you also just not know about all that? Yeah, you really needed to blow off steam with the groomsmen and just ghost everyone, right? Because it was so obvious through your behavior that you were just off the rails. You were having a psychotic break, you weren't yourself, so I needed to go drink my sorrows away. Yeah, that makes so much sense, man. Or you could just be lying and giving everyone else a fake story as to how you were feeling and what the real truth is. Honestly, going by your edits, it sounds like you were doing best for yourself here, OP, and I encourage you to keep doing what is right to keep yourself safe and not actually get murdered by this guy in the future when he continues to give you allergens that will kill you. And I don't know if it's too far to file the police report, but I'd be seriously considering it, that's for sure. And now, on to the updates. I am no longer welcome at church. Well, many of you are right that I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch, insisting to pay for it all, and he was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of, if I hurt you, or that you're feeling X or Y feeling, etc. He quoted some scriptures and said that he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple. And I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure that I dealt with as the girlfriend of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times that I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying that it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my coconut allergy and that he didn't bother to tell his own girlfriend he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said that it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut and implied that I'm an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I am a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done, and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can, without blaming Michael for prior illness, without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church where we can pray together, talk it out, and heal. I've felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I'm no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one that I always thought of was loving, compassionate, and kind. And I am done. I was told by him and by further emails rolling in that I am no longer welcomed at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dobre videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like, do your laundry, or something, so I'll just say, live for yourself, feed your soul, and know that you are enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to just get there, and I hope that we all make it to the other side contented and filled with love and joy. And by the way, F you, Michael. I know you're reading this. I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little bit soggy. I forgot to add it to my post, but I did want to bring the threesome requests into it. Well, I sent his daddy screenshots of some texts. If you'd like some drama, here are the top 2. 1. It was a night I sent him home after he tried and failed to pressure me into sex. He sent me that I was missing out and should be grateful since your body makes me sick, but my love for you is stronger. Would it kill you to be grateful enough to just do a hand job? Oh my god, what? Wow, so sexy. And 2, on his birthday, I had just been in the hospital after passing out from exhaustion and dehydration and went straight to his party. I stayed at his until everyone left, and I left soon after helping clean all but the kitchen, and he sent, "You could have cleaned the kitchen, you know." Then, or stayed over for sex. Then, "You're a waste of time if I don't even get birthday sex. Thanks a lot." And after both, he suggested adding a third. His dad hasn't responded. In the comments, Still Actuator 8316 says, "Holy crap, and you stayed with him? You poor girl. No one deserves someone like that in their life. But you didn't say if you told his dad about him sending you to the hospital and potentially killing you, because we both know, and the rest of Reddit knows, that he did that intentionally. And if there was proof of him giving you that cake, you could probably send his happy ass to jail." OP replies, "I didn't and don't have the best self-esteem, and here is the only black woman in the town that I've known of. I've always known that I am considered less desirable. Not saying that's right, but just knowing where I live. Been here since my preteen years. When Michael asked me out, it was like a parade. Everyone acted like it was a Cinderella story and that I'd won the lottery or something. I have a friend who I've been texting today, and she's letting me know how dumb I've been. I never told her of our issues, and is about ready to commit crimes, lol. I think I lost myself for a bit, but I wanted to leave the church low-key for a while because of my treatment, so that helps a bit." Acute Death 2023 says, "And that his underpants chafe. Not the asshole, and I'm so glad that you shed the dead weight and that you're prioritizing self-care. Your older, Australian Reddit mama here is proud of you." OP replies, "I'm actually a little emotional. I hadn't realized it, but I did when I read that. I don't have a bio mum in my life, though I luckily do have strong women in my circle, but something about reading that you're proud of me really hit me. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart." The emotional blackmail for sex wasn't even the reddest flag. OP straight up dodged the bullet there. That place sounds straight up like a sort of cult. Screw Michael and that father. Both can eat shit for all I care. I think she was at least grazed by the bullets. He did give her an allergic reaction, putting her in the hospital. Yeah, another one where I'm like, there's definitely some racism going on here. Holy shit. I want to cringe into a black hole with everyone acting like it was a Cinderella story and that she'd won the lottery or something. Oh my god. It just sounds like it's coming out of some cringe racist fantasy YA novel. Oh yeah, Cinderella right here, got the prince. Let's all sing and dance, hell yeah. I'd be ready to commit crimes too. There's just so much wrong with this guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had continued to escalate the behavior into actually killing her. Opie also saying, I've always known that I'm considered less desirable. I'm sure you didn't always know that beforehand, but I do think that he drilled that into you with his toxicity and homicide attempts, multiple homicide attempts, and putting you down all the time. Don't you love it when this cult leader dad just completely takes his side and then is silent when faced with solid evidence that his son was a piece of shit? But maybe it's by design. Maybe he trained his son to be like that. Who knows? But thank God you're out of there, and do your best to keep him out of your life and keep him from stalking you. I would be putting that police report in if I were you. That solidifies it for me. Send his ass to jail. Am I the asshole for feeling like my eldest daughter should be treated the same way as my real children? When my male 45, daughter, female 13, was born, I immediately felt that something was obviously amiss. She was blonde-haired and blue eyes, which was extremely unlikely for a child of myself and my ex-wife, female 39. I am very Mediterranean, and I have olive skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. My ex-wife has brown eyes and relatively dark brown hair. Her skin is barely lighter than mine. The baby also clearly bore no resemblance to me or anyone in my family at all. I had been having misgivings about my ex too, and she seemed too quick to express surprise and make excuses. Still though, I didn't want to throw away my marriage over what could have been my own misunderstanding of genetics, and so I signed the birth certificate. I instantly knew that I was going to have a paternity test done, but something else surprised me. When I brought our little girl home, I still fell in love with her. It just felt like bringing my son, male 14, home, and looking at her, I still just saw her as an innocent, beautiful little baby. We bonded. The paternity test came back negative, as I suspected it would, and I decided that our marriage was over. I still loved our little girl though. My then wife did everything she could to drag out the divorce and refused to separate or move out. My daughter's biological father, every bit as blonde and blue-eyed as I suspected, turned out to want nothing to do with her or my ex. He was already married with his own family, and his only focus was preventing the situation from blowing back on himself too much. My ex went totally nuts when both I and her affair partner rejected her, and she made some very unfortunate decisions. To make a long story short, she ended up with prison time for crimes including identity theft, assault with a deadly weapon, and grand theft auto, when she stole credit cards and forged documents for both of us, and when she stole her affair partner's car and tried to run him over with it. I ended up with custody of our kids, with the affair partner never even attempting to establish any kind of paternity rights. I didn't want to press the issue myself, as I couldn't deny that I had bonded with this child, even knowing that she wasn't my real daughter. I had been shunning my now ex-wife as best I could, and trying to move on with my life after she was finally out of the house. It wasn't long before I got together with and married my current wife, female 34, and we've since had another 2 children, male 10 and female 8. My eldest daughter is a total daddy's girl, and we have a wonderful relationship. She always feels loved, and I treat her the same as my other kids. Even though she obviously stands out, my family accepts her too, or at least that's what I thought. I work for my father's company, and the other day we were talking about the future and his will, and he was talking about what money and assets, etc. he wanted to leave to whom, including his grandchildren, and I noticed that my older daughter had been left out. I mentioned it to him, and he said, "It's nice what you've done for your daughter, but you have real children, and obviously they should come first." I interrupted him, and I told him that she is my real daughter, and that I thought she should be treated equally. He just paused and looked at me for a moment, and he said, "I guess you feel how you feel," before he noticed I was still about to argue with him, and he shrugged and moved the conversation on to things about work and my siblings. I was too polite to try to force the matter at the time, but it sort of stuck with me. My father isn't the type of man to harp on a point, and I am certain that he is content to have said his piece and would let the matter drop. He could certainly tell what he said upset me, and so I doubt he would bring it up again. Frankly, he sort of raised me the same way. At the time, I was shocked, because he always seemed to accept my daughter as a part of the family. He buys her gifts for her birthday and for Christmas, and he makes her feel welcome, But thinking about it, he really is just a kind, polite, and generous man in a lot of ways. He will and has bought Christmas gifts for high school friends and significant others if he knew that they were coming, and the same for other gift-giving occasions. He's generally very hospitable to anyone his friends and family bring around, so I thought that maybe it was just that, and I misinterpreted. My wife is Asian, so my eldest daughter always stands out. She is thin and blonde and blue-eyed, unlike pretty much anyone else in my family, and she's taller than any of the other girls, or even most of the women, really. So I'm aware that she might look like the neighborhood kid visiting or something. My wife loves her, and I know that she 100% accepts her as one of our kids, and she has been a great mum/stepmom. I talk to my own mother though, and while she's definitely closer to my daughter than my father is, they interact a lot more, and she includes my daughter with the other kids/other girls in family traditions and activities. I got a little bit of the same vibe from her. She was much more diplomatic, but it seems like she may also sort of consider my daughter to be sort of a guest/unfortunate orphan that I'm hosting or something like that. She pointed out that I can make my own will however I want. My daughter knows that she isn't biologically mine. That would have been hard to hide, even if we'd really had the opportunity. She doesn't want anything to do with either of her bio parents though. She's seen her bio dad perhaps a handful of times in her entire life, and I don't even think he can remember her middle name. He seems to have pretty successfully kept his family together and his wife from leaving him, but he definitely doesn't want any involvement. My ex-wife continued to spiral for a long while, and she lives in another state with another man and her own new family at this point. She mercifully rarely makes contact. I've never really tried to go after either of them for money. I don't need it, and it's not a pot that I want to stir. My siblings are mostly supportive, if a little bit mixed on the issue. Some of them say that they could never raise a child of an affair partner, but all of them say that they love and accept their niece. I just can't get over the way that I feel distant and upset about what my father said, though. He's an extremely kind and generous man, and he's always taking care of his family. He's given me opportunities and a lifestyle that I never could have achieved without him. I love him, and I look up to him. Maybe that's why I feel sort of, I don't know, betrayed? It feels wrong that she's the only one of his grandchildren to be left out of his will, apparently because he doesn't consider her a real grandchild. Intellectually, I can accept that he's technically correct, but it feels wrong. She is my daughter. Am I wrong, though? Am I just being entitled and unreasonable here? Am I the asshole? In the comments, Jacobi Dave says, I get why members of your family might consider you foolish for raising the result of your ex-wife's affair, but honestly, it speaks well of your character that you treat her as your own. I wonder if your parents would be similarly not accepting if you had adopted a child, because practically that is what happened. I wish you and your family the best, not the asshole. I think OP should ask his parents that. If I had adopted a child, would you feel this way about that child? Okay, because that's what I did. I put my name on her birth certificate and raised her knowing that she wasn't biologically mine. I adopted her, and she is my daughter. I agree, and to be honest, she was born into your family, and you have claimed her as your own child. Same as if you'd adopted her or brought her into the world through birth. That's very important to me, and to be honest, anyone that didn't want to accept that and wanted to treat that child differently from my other kids would not be someone that I would want to spend much time with any of my kids. Not the asshole. I think you are an amazing dad. My stepmother did this for me, although I wasn't an affair child. My father died when I was 15, and my birth mother spent most of her life institutionalized for mental health concerns. My stepmother, like you, was a saint. You will probably never really fully know the good you have done. No, you're a goddamn saint. The problem is, you're thinking other people will be saints too, and they're not. Their reactions are understandable, but it makes me sad for her when she eventually learns the truth of how they see her. Yeah, there's no really winning in this one. I do think that the case is settled there. You're not the asshole for feeling like your eldest daughter should be treated the same way, but I don't see it changing. To me, this is kind of a pick your battles situation. Like, your life is where it is at right now because of your father. if you fight him on this, you're potentially going to face repercussions for those actions. Either way, your daughter will feel left out, and she will feel the brunt of this crushing denial from the family that she was born into, and that she did nothing to earn the disrespect they show towards her. Life is unfair and very much cruel at times like this, and all you can do is really just be there for her and support her like you always have. And now, onto the updates. Just a small update. Thanks for the comments and wishes. It really put a lot of things into perspective, and it confirmed to me that I needed to say something. Some people seem surprised at the way that I let my daughter's bio parents off the hook, so to speak. The main reason I've never tried to go after my ex or her affair partner for child support is that my daughter is more important to me than money. I'm not struggling at all, and I have the support that I need. More importantly though, I have my daughter. Even though the affair partner didn't apparently want anything to do with her, my lawyer did mention way back in the day that either he or my wife, being her biological parents, could have a strong case for seeking custody. I know I'm biased, but her bio dad seems like a huge asshole, and I know he doesn't care about her. I wouldn't put it past him to try to get custody to just duck out of paying child support though, if his hand was forced. And the idea of having her go to stay with him is just something that I don't even want to think about. Kinda the same thing when her mum got out of prison. She seemed like she was very quick to go shack up with her new guy, and she seemed willing to let the matter lie. So I did the same. The fact that neither of them tried to get her, or in my ex's case, the way she hasn't even bothered to keep much contact with our son either, tells me more than everything I need to know about the kind of parents they are and would be. They only seem interested in their pre-existing and new families, respectively. I wouldn't want to try to back them into trying to take custody. With my daughter being 13, it's possible that we've sort of run out the clock on that matter, but it's still not drama we need or a risk worth taking. In better and more important news though, I talked with my dad. I met with my father for lunch, which was easy enough, as he's around most days and we could sync up some time. I mentioned that I wanted to talk about my daughter not being in his will, and I told him that even if it meant dividing what was being left to me or my other kids, I felt it was really important for her to be included. I also mentioned, as I felt, and as a lot of people pointed out, that it would be devastating for her to find out that she had been excluded after his death. My father agreed that that was a really good point, and he said that she is a lovely girl, that he does love her, and that he wouldn't want to add extra pain or bitterness to her life, especially at such a time. Also, it had gotten around to him that I'd been sort of polling my siblings a little bit, and I think my mum talked to him some, and he said, "This is obviously very important to you. You're my son, I can just change it. It's not so much money anyway." And he was right. The amounts of money being left to individual grandchildren aren't massive, but the gesture and the thought are what's most meaningful. Mostly everything is going to mum and or his kids anyway. Really, there was no reason for me to expect him to have been stubborn or hard-hearted about any of this. It was just something that we needed to talk about. My father reiterated that everyone loves my daughter and that she'll always be family and always have a home. He has a gold bracelet that he's worn somewhat occasionally over the years, and he mentioned that my daughter thought that it was pretty. When she was very little, she noticed it on his wrist and said that jewelry was for girls. He laughed and explained to her that sometimes boys wear jewelry too. She thought it was nice and he let her try it on, even though it was way, way too big for her wrist. She was a little toddler then. I didn't know about that moment between them, and I thought that it was really sweet that he remembered. He said he was going to leave her the bracelet and a note, and that as far as money goes, she would get the same share as the rest of my kids. So we had a nice lunch, and we both felt better for it. Nothing too dramatic, but really the best way things could have gone. Thanks everyone for confirming that I wasn't being crazy and confirming that I needed to talk to my father and to set things right. In the comments, Appropriate Area says, "This is a happy update. Your father is a good man, and he raised you to be a wonderful man himself. I love a story of good people being good people. Thank you. It's sad that there has to be such shitty ones to make the good ones stand out, but I guess we have to take that with life. I hope OP and his family have a wonderful one. Let's be real. OP didn't have to step up, but thank goodness he did, because he's doing right by all his kids, whether bio or not. His side of the family needs to understand that his adopted daughter may have came to him under effed up circumstances. That doesn't change the basic fact that they all know that OP sees her as his real daughter, and they need to respect that. I hope his side of the family continue to have that epiphany before they find themselves on outs with him and all his kids. OP adopted his daughter, but more importantly, his daughter has an actual blood sibling with her older brother. A family of kids with a mix of 4 different parents. They are all interconnected, even if some are not directly blood-related. They are a family, and OP actually understands that. He's an incredible father, and his kids will grow up to be good people. I was there for the original posts, and was infuriated. Your adopted child is your child. Full stop, no qualifiers. Your child's child is your grandchild. Full stop, no qualifiers. OP's father partially got it, but it sounds like mainly for OP's sake, not his granddaughter's. Well, sometimes that's all we can ask for. And it's much preferable to him sticking to his original plan. Yeah, I'm just going with the safe side with my judgment there, but I'm very much happy that this happened, that things were made equal and they were made right, considering the circumstances. I just assume, and I'm biased in the fact that deaths and wills and inheritance will always bring out the worst in people. Obviously not always, but it has a very high probability in being disgustingly ugly. I just assumed that was going to happen here. I just assumed that the family was going to devolve into tribalism and come together to cut him out of the will because screw you got mine. I'm jaded, I'll be the first to admit. But my heart melts hearing just how beautifully this was resolved and how he came around so easily. It did sound like it needed a bit of coaxing and social pressure from OP going around to everyone, but I feel like he did it in quite a respectful way. And that, thank God, it ended this way and not with, the family ousting OP from their little coherent group they have there. There's just so much you don't know about people's lives and what their family structure is like, and I'm just very much glad that theirs is a wholesome and caring one. Our next post is by user MarsSatin09, titled, I don't want to be 23. Hey guys, my female 23rd birthday is on Thursday, and I'm pretty depressed about it. I'm thinking about how my dad is almost 70, and how the clock is ticking with both of my parents, or how 23 just seems so grown up. I got heartburn at a wedding the other day after 3 drinks. That, to me, is 23. I live in Canada, so I've been able to drink legally for a while now. I've already had my champagne birthday, 21 on the 21st, and now, what? I'm just gonna go back to school. I'm broke as hell. My credit sucks, which is my own fault, and I feel like I'm watching my parents slip away. I want to be 10 and at a Dairy Queen after spending the evening at the park. I want that forever. I'm starting to get hungover after 1 or 2 sweet drinks. I can't pull all-nighters the way that I used to. I can see lines forming on my forehead. I'm not getting ID'd, even when I'm not wearing makeup. I just want to wake up in my childhood bedroom with the knowledge that I have. I want this to all be a dream. I am so scared, and I feel like the older I get, the more I realize how short life is. I'm too poor to travel, and my job after college will maybe pay me $50K a year. Right now, I'm serving effing tables, and I'm miserable. There is no money in that right now either. I need to renew my Smart Serve certification to serve alcohol, and I can't even afford that. But I won't be scheduled at work if I don't renew it in time. Cool. I just feel like I made so many mistakes, and that my life could have gone way better. Now I'm feeling the effects of aging, watching it happen to my parents, and I have nothing to show for it. I miss my Barbies, and pink bedroom, and building forts in the forest. Now I'm about to be 23, and I have a nicotine addiction and debt on top of debt. I don't have the money to enjoy my youth, and it feels like it's slipping away. God, I wish humans lived for like 200 years. I don't know where I'm going with this. Time is fleeting, and there is a cost of living crisis, and I could have had my bachelor's by now, and I can't even effing drive, but even if I could, there's no way that I could afford it. I want to marry my boyfriend, but if it's not a courthouse wedding, then it's just not in the budget. I'm not suicidal, but I don't really see a light, and I'm not optimistic about my future, so I guess I'll just glide. Maybe I'll win one of those $1,000 a week things, and then I can pursue my education and dream job without financial burdens. Not that I even remember to ever buy them, lol. I'm not a gambler. I miss being a child and not having to worry. I don't know. If you read this far, then thanks. In the comments, Careless Sir 6080 says, sheesh, at 23, I, 26 male, made an oath to myself to wear Jordans all year. And I did. I also got my first face tattoo, and I became a pescatarian, lost all my weight, and even made the most money I've ever seen in my life that year. I ended up dating a hot girl and started working at my dream job. Needless to say, everything I could have ever dreamed of started happening at 23. I'm 26, turning 27 come January, and I'm working on buying a car and getting my own place. Still working my dream job and living like there's no tomorrow. Don't give up so easy. I'm so sorry that things aren't going the way that you want. You do sound a little depressed. I notice you're doing a lot of comparing yourself to what you used to be, to where you hope to be by this point, to how your life could have gone by now. Better, of course. I'm sure you know it could also have gone worse. You could have made bad decisions and driven drunk and killed someone, and you didn't. You could have done video games instead of homework and flunked out of high school or college. You could have gotten rough with the wrong person in the wrong part of town and gotten beaten up or killed. In general, you've made some pretty good decisions, and though you're not a trust fund snowflake who was handed everything on a silver platter, you're doing kind of okay. You just kind of feel stuck. It's kind of a hazard of your generation to be constantly exposed to people your age who have done better. Celebrities, influencers, sport figures, science fair winners, kids whose lemonade stands raise money for some cause. I'm really old, and we never heard of most of these people, so we never had the chance to feel inferior to them. We just kept doing the next day's homework, or the next weekend's volunteer task, or the next sport or music practice. And we did better than Buddy Sam in music, but not as well as Chris in sports. And it kind of evened out in the end because Sam definitely wanted to be a preacher and Chris wanted to be an electrician, and we wanted something different from either of them. I'm hoping you see that you've been under a lot of your generation's pressure to prove something by your age, and most of us older folk never had to. We just had to keep on keeping on at your age. I'd recommend you consider volunteering because that tends to give you perspective that social media doesn't. Good luck. OP replies, thank you. This made me tear up. I have placements starting next semester, and my program is child and youth care, so I can imagine that it will allow me a moment to be grateful. My whole future career is kind of being paid to volunteer, if that makes sense. It's like a subsection of social work, but I really do want to when I have time. On the days I don't have class, I work, so hopefully one day. Thank you for your empathy though. You are very kind. Social work? Hun, you're not doing okay. You're awesome. You know how proud you're going to be of one of your kids who had a tough start when they get to 23 and are in college, don't you? You're going to be whooping and hollering all over the schoolyard because it'll be amazing. Well, how about borrowing a little of that enthusiasm for the achievements of the one who's going to help them get there? In part because she's seen some down times too. You know who I mean. You. Come on. You can do it. A teeny tiny whoop. An itsy bitsy bit of a you go girl. There. Don't you feel better? Now go rock that new semester, eh? And now on to the update. Hey everyone. Around last September, I, female, posted a rather depressing rant about my then upcoming 23rd. Well, I'm almost 24 now, and I'm happy. Financially, I'm doing a lot better. I switched programs, I'm on the dean's list, I get scholarships. I left the restaurant biz because of how well I do in school. I can live fairly comfortably. Within reason, of course. Me and my boyfriend mentioned in the previous post broke up, and that was weirdly an instant uplift in my mood, especially once I deleted his number. I'm crushing hard on a different man, and I think that might work out. Maybe. Hopefully. I was kind of regressing in terms of my mental health when I posted that, and I just wanted to say I'm doing better. I'm good, I'm happy, 24 is coming, and I think that'll be okay too. Take this as a lesson, I suppose. In the comments, Throw RA Rose Color says, I guess an unforeseen silver lining of having a shitty home life in childhood is I've never ever wished to be 10 years old. The older I got, the better my life got. Damn, I'd love to be 23 again. No. Even with all my knowledge now, I still would not go back there. I like being an eccentric old lady. When my husband dies, I'm about to get 5 of those giant rabbits. I'm 23 and I'm finishing my master's by the end of the year. I will still randomly have feelings of existential dread because I don't think I have anything figured out and don't know what I'm going to do in a couple of months once I'm done. I'm starting to think that maybe none of us feel like we are where we want to be. One of my friends just hit 40. By all measures and appearances, he appears to be a very good grown-up. He's the first to admit that he sometimes feels like he could shit himself from feeling like he is a fake adult. Am I the asshole for not allowing my fiancé's BF to come to our wedding? My fiancé and I have been together just under 6 years. Dated 3, engaged 2.5. Great relationship, relatively. Our friends and family all get along well with the other person, no issue at all, except for one of my partner's best friends. Said best friend has never liked me and seemingly had it out for me the entire time. She basically ignores my existence, refuses to speak or be cordial to me, but as soon as she sees my partner, she's yelling and hugging him, talking about, "Hey best friend," while ignoring me, even though I'm right next to him. I told him about it and how it made me feel, and at first it went unaddressed 2 to 3 more times because he needed proof to make sure that there was an issue. After said proof was present, he spoke to her about it and she got a little better, but only around groups of people and like twice. She indicated that she doesn't have a problem with me, so he felt that I'm the only one having an issue and I need to just approach her and talk it out. I told him that I'm not doing that because she isn't my friend and he needs to do so. A couple of weeks ago, we attended a mutual friend's party. I attempted to make eye contact and say hello 2 to 3 times, but she avoided me and refused to look at me the whole time. My fiancé noticed because it was so blatant. I don't want her respect, don't need her to like me, and don't honestly want her around at all. I just want her to have basic human decency. This situation has caused me to rethink my relationship and end it because I feel my fiancé is in the wrong for engaging with her after seeing how she completely disregards me. I think now, but mostly after marriage, we're supposed to be a unit, and I wouldn't allow this behavior from a friend. I've been feeling like an asshole because we spent the better half of a nice drunken evening arguing about this, and I told him that she can't come to our wedding, as I won't have someone who can't seem to stand me near me. Am I the asshole for telling my fiancé that she can't come to our wedding? In the comments, Kuet says, not the asshole, but I am surprised that you decided to marry someone who allows such behavior toward you. OP replies, I don't want to ruin what has otherwise been the healthiest and best relationship in my life, but I've been thinking on it hard. Because where are the boundaries? She is not distant with you. She pretends that you don't exist. A good partner wouldn't keep her as a friend. Moreover, most people don't need to face such dilemma once they are done with high school. Why? Usually when someone doesn't like a friend's significant other very much, she or he tries to befriend the significant other anyway because she or he isn't afraid to lose his or her friend. If there is really no compatibility, she or he tends to avoid the significant other, but they don't become openly hostile to avoid losing their friend, except if they have a real reason to dislike the significant other. Ask yourself, 1. Why does your significant other accept the way that his friend behaves towards you? 2. Why does she think that she can increase the hostility she displays towards you over time? I guess she assumes there'll be no consequences, and/or she thinks that she is his number one. OP replies, true. I think she thinks she is his number one, and he'll choose her if it came to the wire. She acts very much like a high schooler, and that's something that I can't get jiggy with. I don't know why he's accepting of this behavior. It definitely makes me suspicious at first because I was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why aren't you defending me? But to be honest, he is non-confrontational, avoids any type of conflict, and tends to make excuses for everyone. Here's the thing, OP. He has basically chosen her over you almost every time. Why is he okay with hurting you, the person he's in a relationship with, to avoid conflict with his friend? I'm not going to say break up, but I think you need to take a long look at his behavior and decide if you want to spend the rest of your life being put second. Because by being non-confrontational and allowing her to continue to disrespect you, he is choosing a side and it's not yours. OP replies, I'm starting to see that more and more. I don't know, it's not a big deal to him. He brushes it off as just her being her, but you're absolutely right, he's not choosing me. It's a hard realization to come to, and I'm sorry that it's necessary. I know you love him and want the best for him, but you deserve someone who also wants that for you, and treats you accordingly. You deserve someone who will put you first, will stand up for you, and not accept someone disrespecting you. Whatever decision you make, I wish you the best. Arsenal7 says, not the asshole, but your fiancé is. Had he ever asked her what her effing problem is? Take a hard stance on no invites. OP replies, that's how I feel too, but I don't know. He said he has, and she said she had no issue with me. Yeah, and we both know that that's not true, or there would have been a behavior change. The fact that he continues to allow her in his life without one is unacceptable. OP says, it's a lie. I've tried saying that. I'll bring it up again calmly. Not the asshole. She's in love with your man, upset that he's with you, and pretending like you don't exist to make herself feel better. She won't say or do anything to make him upset. Her saying she has no problem with you is because the problem isn't with you technically, it's with him. She was hoping for her romantic movie moment when the male best friend finally realizes and falls for his female best friend. OP replies, to be honest, this is what my best friend and a select few people that I told about this a while ago had said. There were times on social media where she indicated that she was the ideal woman for him and that he needs someone like her. I reckon they're cheating. I reckon they're cheating together and they've just, kept it under wraps for this long. There's no way. OP, if everyone sees it, there is definitely an emotional affair going on here, and I would seriously push for there is a physical affair going on here. You're the placeholder. You're always going to be the placeholder for your fiancé, where she is the real wife. I don't know why people play these stupid games, because my money's on the fact that he breaks up with you, or you break up with him, he gets with her, and then she's like, haha, I had my fun, I don't want to be with you, bye. Then he has no one in his life, and he deserves it. To me, that's a logical outcome of these things, and I will refuse to accept the fact that there is no cheating going on here. And you shouldn't marry this man. Not the asshole for not allowing the fiancé, but somewhat of an asshole to yourself if you marry this guy. This situation sucks and everyone around you can see it. And now, on to the updates. The comments on my original post opened my eyes and made me realize that despite this being the healthiest relationship I've been in, it doesn't mean that it's actually healthy. We've had a couple conversations surrounding this issue, which mostly consisted of me saying that it bothered me and him saying that I was the only one who cared. A couple things helped me realize my breaking points. 1, I asked him if he would be okay with our daughter's future partner treating them like this, to which he got flustered, shut down, and said he didn't want to talk about it, so I left it alone. 2, he said he didn't want to end his friendship or do anything to jeopardize it because what if we break up? This made me realize he would not protect me as his wife since he didn't as his girlfriend. The final straw was when I expressed how much it bothered me that he wanted me to blow this off since we, as in me and the best friend, only see each other 4 to 6 times a year, and he said, directly quoted because this is burned into my brain, I know the way she treats you is garbage, but you're allowing one person to dictate our relationship. It could be worse. She could be more active. There are way worse ways to meddle. People text and lie and all that to break relationships up. The first line broke my heart and told me all I needed to know. I had to truck through a couple more months of pre-planned and paid-for social engagements, but I closed the curtain on any chance of healing this relationship the moment those words left his mouth. Thank you everyone for the advice, common sense, knocking me upside my head, and similar related experiences and outcomes. I'm going to go to therapy and redefine what a healthy, balanced, and communicative relationship is. Edit. The pre-planned events aren't wedding/engagement related. We share a home and need to divide assets, pets, and a custody schedule. Additionally, we have vacations, planned with a mutually shared friend group. Boyfriend is not part of that group, and I appreciate the concerns, but I need to plan things out a little more. There will be no second chance. To those that keep saying they're screwing, probably. When I first brought this up, he became stressed and kept emphasizing how I thought he was screwing his best friend and didn't address the issue that was brought up. I don't care to know or confirm. Edit 2. We are not getting married, nor are we continuing our relationship. For those thinking that I'm using the pre-planned events to justify holding out, absolutely effing not. Our relationship was dead the moment he admitted that she treated me like garbage and basically just shrugged it off. As a note, I never asked him to cut anyone off out of his life. I simply asked for basic greetings and acknowledgement during the rare encounters with his BFF. This hasn't happened, aside from a couple of begrudging times. Final edit. I tried asking him the "what would you tell your daughter to do?" question. He answered that if she loved her partner, she shouldn't care about outside people. Additionally, he said he was tired of talking about it, he feels he's done all he can, and he doesn't want us, me, to bring her up because he's tired of talking about it. I told him our relationship is done in September, when our lease is up, etc., apologized for bringing it up, and asked if he wanted to be alone for the evening. Thank you to everyone for helping me realize that I wasn't asking for too much. I really thought he was the one for me, but I wasn't thinking straight. I'm tired and I want better for myself. I'm okay with being alone. I appreciate you all. Have a good night. In the comments, Scenarioing says, quote, I know the way she treats you is garbage, but you're allowing one person to dictate our relationship. No, he is the one doing that. It could be worse. She could be more active. She hasn't actually said she wanted to sleep with him yet. Is what that means. She doesn't have to say that. They probably did it, and not just once. That's why she's so confident about her role in his life. That, or he's her backup plan. If OP ever actually ends things, the friend will claim that she feels bad until she gets a new boyfriend. Then she'll pop back up when he gets another girlfriend. Yes, it is all narcissism. She doesn't want the fiancé, but she wants to be wanted. He's mine! I call dibs! No, I don't really want him, but I may, in the future, who knows? He cannot entertain another woman because I am still number one. No one else will take my spot. What? You broke up? Aw, man, too bad. I mean, I already have a boyfriend, but don't go anywhere. I might need you to prop up my ego, just at a later date. He said he didn't want to end his friendship or do anything to jeopardize it, because what if we break up? This made me realize he would not protect me as his wife. Yup, the friend comes before you. What a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't live in the what-ifs. Don't worry about the planned and pre-planned events. Get out now. The relationship is dead. Don't wait until the stench kills everyone around you. If the money's lost no matter what, skip on out and give yourself the gift of more time to heal and deal. Good luck, OP. You can do this. Sunk cost fallacy is at play here. Rip off the bandage, it only gets messier the longer you wait. 'Cause why do you have to truck through any pre-planned events? Honey, nothing is worth losing the time and space you'll gain by bowing out now. He's made clear that you are second, at best, in his life. Losing money is not fun, but losing time, the time you could be using to heal, is the best gift you can give yourself. Be kind to yourself first. The OP was originally posting on the Dead Bedroom subreddit, but deleted those posts, so I don't think her relationship was as great as she thought it was. Oh well, Hopefully she learns from this. Holy shit, I just went through OP's history and came across this gem from their very first effing post. Recently, on 2 separate occasions, he was drunk. The first he told me, "I want to bang you and my friend together." The most recent time he said, "Yeah, if we weren't together, maybe before, or if we broke up, I'd try that." Both of these were unprompted. The issue is, I feel this is disrespectful, and even drunk as a skunk, I wouldn't say anything like this. He claims he wasn't there and doesn't remember anything, and wants to move on because me being angry is getting us nowhere. Whenever they say, "This is the best, healthiest relationship I've ever been in," I just want to go, okay, you've got shit taste in partners, but that still doesn't make this one healthy. It's always, "It's the best, healthiest relationship I've ever been in, except this one thing my partner does that makes me feel like shit and that I don't matter to them, and now that I'm thinking about it out loud, it's actually a deal breaker. Thanks everyone for your time and input." I mean, I almost married the first dude who didn't hit me. The bar was low. Look, I know that there was a lot of comments there, but I feel like they just needed to be said, especially that one about her first post. He was definitely banging the ever-loving Christ out of that best friend. Why did he bring that up unprompted to his fiancé? How was that necessary? They also had a dead bedroom. That is a very key component in someone cheating. His needs were being satisfied somewhere else. Why did she have to post in the dead bedroom subreddit? And yeah, like those guys were saying, just because it's the healthiest relationship you've had so far, doesn't mean you need to stay in it, and doesn't mean that it is healthy at all. Because isn't it so funny that when you type everything out and you get everyone else's perspective, they're like, "He's not good for you. Get away from him. What are you doing? Why would you marry someone like that? Are you out of your damn mind?" I don't know though, OP. I'm very much glad that you're out of there and that you're doing a lot better now, hopefully. And I hope you get married to someone that doesn't disrespect you every step of the way there, like this guy has. So all the best of luck in the future, OP, and thank you for sharing your story. Our next post is by user Dread Pirate Grant, titled, "Am I the asshole for not letting my kids ride 4 hours home with their grandmother?" Around 1 a.m., there was a terrible crash as my 70 female mother-in-law decided to try to navigate our stairs in the dark while wearing a CPAP. She stumbled down the stairs, hitting her head bad enough to bruise her face and cause some serious swelling around her ear. I immediately started calling 911, but my wife, who was an NICU RN, told me not to call as her mother had no obviously broken bones and didn't want to go. I'm not a medical professional, and it's seldom wise to argue with a nurse or one's wife, but I pressed for them to at least let me drive her to the ER if they refused an ambulance, but all to no avail. This was just a couple of hours ago, and she's now in bed with an ice pack and a couple of Tylenol to avoid blood thinners. In the morning, she wants to drive home and take my 9 female daughter and 13 male son to her place for the week. This has been planned for weeks, and I would have no issues with it, but for the fact that the woman just fell down a flight of stairs and could have a concussion. I love her, and don't want her to drive at all, and asked her to stay a couple of extra days, but if she insists on going, then I can't stop her. I told my wife I was uncomfortable with the kids riding with her, given the danger, and she thinks that I'm being silly, which I don't understand at all, and she's a very competent nurse. I finally told her that everyone could be mad at me, but it simply wasn't an option. I'll take the day off and drive them if I must, but I won't take any chances. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Starry North says, "I'm a nurse, and I'm frankly appalled at your wife's decision to not take her mother to the ER. A 70-year-old who suffers a fall and sustains head injuries should absolutely be checked out in the ER, whether or not your wife, your mother, or the Easter Bunny believes that it isn't necessary. If she absolutely refuses to go, tell her that your children will not be staying with her at her house, as you do not think it is safe. She could be suffering from a concussion or an intracranial bleed. The fact that she's on blood thinners makes the situation worse. And then she wants to not only drive, but take the children for days? Those poor children will be the ones that find her if she is bleeding internally." I don't think she's on blood thinners. I think he meant Tylenol was to avoid aspirin or Advil, which can thin blood. Usually that's a concern because the person is already on some kind of blood thinners, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a problem. I don't have many at that age that aren't on some type of thinner. My thoughts exactly. The risks of internal bleeding from head trauma are so much higher with age. The brain can have age-related atrophy, and then a stair fall can be as damaging as shaking a baby. She absolutely needed to go to the ED, and I haven't seen anyone address the cognitive process of walking with the whole CPAP machine, instead of at least disconnecting the mask from the tubing. Not the asshole, and your wife is being blindly irresponsible just because it's her mom. I would drive them yourself and make sure your children fully know how to contact you in an emergency should anything happen to mother-in-law whilst they are there. She's irresponsible as a daughter and a mother and a nurse. Not the asshole. I mean, do we forget Bob Saget so soon? He hit his head, went back to bed, and didn't wake up in the morning. I'd 100% tell her that your children's visit is contingent on going to get checked out before she drives home. Safer for her, safer for your children, safer for everyone else on the road during her 4-hour drive. Same with Natasha Richardson, but that was a ski accident, and she refused treatment. Always best to be looked at. I believe she passed several hours later from a brain bleed. Googled it. Even worse. A couple hours later, she had a headache and went to the hospital, but it was too late. She died a couple of days later. Really speaks to how urgent you need to get checked immediately. Yeah, I'm with you on this one, OP. Absolutely don't let her anywhere near that steering wheel if the kids are in the car. If she's gonna go taking joyrides down the stairs with her CPAP machine connected to her, she can do that all she wants in the safety of her own presence. But do not be putting those kids in danger. Thank you for being the voice of reason here when someone, like a nurse wife, will use her status and her education in order to trump you and your common sense. It seems as though she's not working off of common sense in this situation, and she's putting her own mother and her kids in danger just to save face or something like that. I don't know what she is thinking. If I were you, I would die on this hill. I would absolutely go to war for my kids. Definitely not the asshole OP. And now, onto the updates. Well, my mother-in-law was alive and conscious when we woke up in the morning. My wife stayed up to watch over her throughout the night. I spoke to my wife this morning and again shared my concerns regarding the dangers my mother-in-law would be posing to herself and our kids, and my wife was frustrated that I questioned her opinion, but when I asked if she was so utterly certain in her diagnosis, sans any medical equipment, that she was willing to bet both her mother and our children's lives on it, she sheepishly relented and agreed the kids would stay home and that she would encourage her mum to go to the ER. I spoke to my mother-in-law again and asked her to let me take her to the ER, and she shared that her primary reason for refusing medical care was a fear of the cost of doing so. Unfortunately, that's a serious concern of many folks here in the US. Anyways, hearing that, I firmly insisted that she go and told her that we would cover any costs. She and my wife finally went to the ER, and after several hours and copious tests, it was in fact determined that she had a concussion as well as a rib and wrist fractures and soft tissue injuries. Bruising? My wife was pretty devastated with the diagnosis and was deeply apologetic and remorseful. My mother-in-law will be in hospital until at least tomorrow. The hospitalist pretty directly chided both my wife and mother-in-law. All in all, I'm thankful that things didn't end up worse. The kids only cared about their grandma being okay. Some answers to questions asked. 1. My mother-in-law is a retired school teacher and on a very limited fixed income, along with my father-in-law. There is no inheritance or any other reason my wife would have wished her ill. They have a great relationship. My wife sprang out of bed the moment the accident happened and was almost detached and clinical at the moment, but was later extremely emotional. Her father had a major stroke last year, and we actually just sold our house Friday in order to move closer to her parents to help care for them in their old age. 2. While my wife has been an NICU nurse for a decade, she was a step-down ICU nurse for 8 years. I realize that doesn't strengthen her case regarding her decision, but perhaps it adds context. She really is remarkable with babies and has saved many a life, but I can certainly understand why the circumstances of these events would paint her in a less than beneficial light. And 3, in retrospect, I think my wife was in a state of shock. She's never lost anyone, and her dad's stroke is still fresh on her mind. I've lost both parents and 4 siblings, plus plenty of friends in my time in the service, so I have to look at her through a lens of empathy. Am I the asshole for abandoning my mother-in-law in a parking lot full of watching people? I, female 26, am a stay-at-home mother, and I pick up my daughter after school. My husband, 35 male, takes her to school in the mornings on the way to his work. Mother-in-law got divorced a couple of months ago and not so subtly complained to my husband that she was lonely, so my husband insisted that we have her over every weekend. Mother-in-law and I don't get along. For example, mother-in-law has always made snide remarks about me being a teenage mum, but I learned to ignore it since my husband asked me to keep the peace. When she began coming over, she would make comments about how dusty the floor was, how much laundry was in the basket, etc., hinting that I should be doing more housework as a stay-at-home mum. The final straw was when she commented about our daughter's academic abilities, saying stuff about how she's below standard academic level and blaming me for not putting in the effort to teach her. After a big argument, my husband finally agreed that only he would visit mother-in-law at her home. Mother-in-law and I haven't spoken to each other since. Mother-in-law's catalytic converter got stolen yesterday and hasn't gotten fixed yet. My husband drove her to work this morning and asked me to pick her up. I said no. Mother-in-law works fairly close to our daughter's school, about a 15-minute walk. In the middle of the day, my husband sends me a text saying that he convinced mother-in-law to walk to our daughter's school so I can pick up both of them. I arrive at my daughter's school and see mother-in-law with daughter. I walk up to them and tell mother-in-law that she can find her own way home, that I'm not going to give her a lift. She started to create a scene and the other parents and children were starting to stare, so I took my daughter by the hand and drove away. My husband yelled at me when he got home, saying that I embarrassed mother-in-law in front of the other parents and left her stranded when I could have easily just driven her home. It really wouldn't have been much work to drive her home one time, and I'm regretting causing a scene at my daughter's school because her classmates and their parents might have seen it. Am I the asshole? In the comments, ANOU says, "Everyone sucks here. You should have an adult conversation with your mother-in-law about your boundaries and how you won't tolerate her demeaning you with her comments. The state of your home and your child's education is not her business, and she can leave those subjects alone." But instead, you made your point by leaving her at your kid's school without any way of getting home. I get it, she's a pain in the ass, but acting like a child doesn't help the situation. Your husband knows how you feel, he knows how his mother feels, and still puts you in a position of having to drive her home. You all suck. Not the asshole. I was going to go everyone sucks here, but then I realized that your husband was an adult who knocked up a teen and then let his mother treat his wife horribly for years. You said no, he heard no, he manipulated you anyway. Your mother-in-law spent years trying to humiliate you. I'm not going to call you an asshole when you finally were able to draw boundaries. She knows full well what she was doing all those years, and your husband knows too. He just doesn't care. This has always been a husband problem. He doesn't stand up for you and doesn't care that you said no. He still thinks you're a teen and that he is the adult and therefore he can manipulate you. He would rather keep mummy happy than respect you. There is a reason that older guys are with younger women, and you are feeling the repercussions years later. You have matured and are better able to stand up for yourself, and he just doesn't respect that. I know, right? Mother-in-law makes comments about OP being a teen mum, but ignores the fact that her at least 27-year-old impregnated a teenager. To be fair, I don't see any confirmation that this guy is the daughter's biological father. OP says, he is the biological father. I had her when I was 19. I agreed to keep the peace with mother-in-law because my husband always let me know that he was on my side. Obviously, he doesn't see anything wrong with my age. Lol, 30-year-old dudes dating teenagers usually never do see anything wrong with barely legal's age. He wouldn't see anything wrong with the next one's age either. Of course he doesn't see anything wrong with it. He's the one that knocked you up. The point is, if mother-in-law should be judging anyone, it should be the man who was almost 30 years old, not the woman who was 19. But I would like to tell you, mother-in-law isn't your issue. Yeah, she sucks and she says terrible things to you, but your husband is the one enabling that. He shouldn't be telling you to keep the peace and saying that he's on your side. He needs to be the one to shut her down and actually show you that he's on your side, because he's clearly not. Your kid's going to have to deal with the fallout and gossip. OP says, "This is my biggest regret about the whole situation, but my daughter is in first grade and I was hoping that it wouldn't be that big of a deal considering how young they are. In hindsight, I should have had the maturity to deal with the situation somewhere else." Yeah, I think this is entirely on the husband for this one. I think it's a not the arsehole judgment for OP. You had to endure years of this witch beating down on you and having absolutely no empathy for you in the situation here, and he's just sat there the whole time obviously not doing anything about it, enabling it and allowing it to continue further. You're not an asshole for abandoning your mother-in-law in a parking lot. She deserved it, and he deserves the repercussions that are coming from that too. Unfortunately, yeah, your kid is going to suffer the consequences of your actions and of the mother-in-law's actions, but it's his fault. At the end of the day, it's still his fault. It's his mum. He should well have the spine and the ability and the willingness to shut her down, yet he doesn't. Instead, he's throwing this back on you for not keeping the peace. Really interesting, reaction and decisions coming from this guy. It really puts a lot into perspective, but still not the asshole. And now, on to the updates. Hi Reddit, sorry this update took so long, but I just signed the last of the divorce papers and wanted to share with this sub. I took the top comments advice and tried to have a conversation with my ex-husband and his mother, but they both just yelled at me and would not listen to anything that I said. My ex-husband even went back on his agreement to not invite her over. Apparently, this was my punishment for disobeying him and embarrassing his mother. For a few months, I stayed with my best friend on the weekends, and she convinced me to divorce him. But because I was a stay-at-home mother, I needed a steady source of income. Early 2023, we started a candle-making business on Etsy. It was really rough the first few months, but we began to gain traction, and I finally told my ex that I wanted a divorce after I felt financially stable. He said no, but I'd already worked everything out with my lawyer. After I sent him the papers, he and his mother began harassing me, and he said that he would only agree to the divorce if I gave up full custody of my daughter. Long story short, this ended up in us going to court, and I now have full custody. My best friend is the real hero of this entire story. She let me stay over for free throughout the proceedings and helped me care for my daughter. With the alimony and the money that I made from the candle-making business, I officially moved in with my best friend and began paying her rent too. I'm currently saving up to buy a place of my own. My daughter and I are really happy right now, and I can't believe that I didn't see how toxic my ex and his mother were for the 7 years that we were married. I hope that this is enough drama for the rest of my life, and thanks to all the people in my DMs who showed me how toxic my relationship was. In the comments, Saint Alvis says, "Congrats, he was too old for you anyways." His decision to hand out punishment shows that he didn't see OP as an equal in the marriage, most likely due to the age difference. Definitely not a relationship to spend the rest of your life in. And mother-in-law insulted OP about being a teen mum, but nothing much about her older son impregnating a teen. Yeah, shaming the mother of your grandson for being a teen mum makes no sense. Either your own son was also a teen parent, and surely that should be seen as just as bad, or he wasn't, which is worse. I like the way your ex thought you wouldn't divorce him because he said no. In his mind, OP says, "I want a divorce," and he goes no, and OP just goes, "Well, I tried. Okay, never mind. I shall resume my role as a doormat for you and your mummy." Punishment for disobeying him. This is why a huge age gap is problematic when a young adult, well, barely an adult, is involved with someone so much older. He didn't see her as an equal. Well, at least she didn't put, "The age gap isn't a problem, so I don't want people commenting on it," before she wrote her story. I love that they tried to take the daughter away from OP and only succeeded in giving her full custody. Ex-husband really screwed himself over with everything. Contrary to popular incel rhetoric, fathers don't automatically lose all custody rights in a divorce for no reason. Either there's visitation, holiday splits, some kind of financial balance, etc. worked out because it is generally beneficial to a child to have both parents be involved in their upbringing. Something else must have happened on paper that made the father look dangerous to the child's well-being for the judge to give OP full custody off the bat. She just had the grace not to post it online after everything resolved. You know what, I didn't pick up on that one either, but that is so true. It's not normal for you to just get full custody like that. Something crazy has to happen, and obviously OP's leaving out a lot of details here as not to be, found out as to who posted this story. I want to know what that man, and possibly his mother, did that revoked full custody entirely from them, because I'm guessing this story didn't end well, that's for sure. You don't just go from a messy breakup and divorce like this to one parent getting full custody for no reason. That is the real juicy drama here, but I respect not sharing those things. We all need to know less about each other. Our next post is by user VariousRock3911, titled, "I am a medical student, and I found what looked like a melanoma on a guy's back. He laughed it off and told me that I didn't know anything. I felt somewhat strange and then turned him around to take a look. Based on what I've seen in my textbook, it looked like a melanoma. He told me that it couldn't be. We're in Hawaii, and he told me, 'You Chinese people here think you're real Hawaiians, but you don't know about real Hawaiians. We're good in the sun. We're from here.' I got him to promise to get it checked out, but later when he was about to leave, he said, 'If I got some kind of cancer, it can't be from the sun. I'm 0% white.' I said, 'Just get it checked out if you don't want to die.' Then he walked out the door. I have his phone number, and I'm not sure if I want to use it to invite him over again, but I'm worried about him. Should I just give up on him and say that I did everything I could? Or is there something else that I should say to him? I'm new to Hawaii and the USA, and I don't really understand this attitude of his at all, or if it's common here. Edit, this did not take place in a clinical setting. I mentioned my medical education only because I've learned what melanoma looks like. This is why I asked him to go get it checked out by a doctor." In the comments, Lithium Popper says, "As a doctor, you are going to come across patients day in, day out who absolutely refuse to take your advice. You have to let those people go. Your job is to provide medical advice to those who are willing to hear it. It's almost like an invisible DNR. If they don't want something from you, you shouldn't try to make them want it." I remember 2 patients that behaved like this. One was a young 30-something woman. She came to the ER because she was yellow and had stomach pain. We ran some tests and she had pancreatitis, so I went to talk with her to start the admission process and IV medicine. She told me she abandoned nursing school, that she knew what she had and refused the treatment because she didn't want to be given medicines. The second was a guy in his young 20s. He had biliary duct cancer, a small lump that was discovered fast because of his location. We discussed the surgical treatment with him, that in cases like his, he has a very good prognosis because of the small portion affected and the early stage. He denied the treatment to go to the jungle with some shaman that promised to cure him with natural medicine. We kept in contact with the family as to keep an open door if he decided to come back. Most of his family was against this natural treatment. He ended up dying like 8 months later after a long list of issues due to complications of his tumor. The thing is, you can try to help people as much as you want, but you can't do anything if they refuse said help. You are not their parents or their jail guard as to be able to decide for them and oblige them to do something they don't want. It is called patient autonomy. OP needs to learn that. Imagine the nerve to go to the ER and tell them that you know better than them because you went to school for a minute. Lady, you came to us. You'd be amazed at the amount of people that do just that. Luckily, most of the ones that deny treatment are just intoxicated and not in pain. So they always tend to come back once they become lucid or their family members take them back because they do realize they need help. That's why those two stay in my memory. They were not intoxicated and they never came back. Sangriolo6 says, "Tell him Bob Marley died from skin cancer and was as island as they come. But really, move on with your life. Some people don't want to be helped. I wouldn't reach out to him just to argue this point further. That would be weird. You're not his doctor." And now, on to the updates. So I sent him a couple of links from the Reddit thread. He's gotten a second opinion from a qualified relative who agrees that it looks like melanoma, and he's made an appointment to get it checked out in a formal setting. He apologized for doubting me. He will also be coming over again tomorrow and promises to listen to me if I noticed anything else on his body. Thank you to everyone who helped save him. In the comments, Crispy Hat says, "That's great news. I'm really pleased that you got such a good outcome." OP replies, "Thanks for the first fully positive comment about a human life being saved. I have a shit ton of moles and never went to a dermatologist. My wife made me go in June and they took 6 samples, and 4 of them came back severe precancerous. Thank God for people like my wife and you. Otherwise, I could be dealing with a lot more troubles than some discomfort from stitches." If women stopped dating men who don't take what they say seriously, there would be a lot less dates happening in the world. Ugh, tell me about it. I work at a government office, and the amount of times that I tell men that dropping their Medicare while on TRICARE for life will also terminate TRICARE, and they don't believe me. I still process their request since they insist, and I make notes stating that they were explained what would happen. When they come back upset because TRICARE dropped them, I am so very happy to tell them, "Well, I did tell you so." Jen West says, "I guess being racist towards OP isn't hateful in OP's opinion. He really went all 'you people' on her, and she didn't see the problem. I wonder if he would have been so dismissive if she had been a male friend instead. Gotta wonder who the relative that actually convinced him is, huh? I hate it when I give a suggestion to someone who doesn't do it until someone else also gives the same suggestion. It's a humongous pet peeve. I know that sometimes it's, I didn't think that it was a good idea, but now that 2 people have said it, I'm going to consider it more seriously, which is understandable, but I can't shake the feeling that it's more like, okay, scientist doesn't know what she's talking about, but this other person totally does. Well, maybe if you were a great scientist and not just an okay scientist? Just teasing. I hate when people don't listen to me, but listen to someone else who says the same thing." Odd Comfortable says, "That's fantastic that she helped him. But girl, he's racist as hell. Do not stay with someone who denigrates people, especially people who look like you or come from your homeland. You'll just be one of the good ones in their eyes." And I almost vomited writing that. It really sucks because we know it's going to come back later and bite her. She'd be in a lot less pain if she just stopped the relationship now, but I guess she has to make mistakes to learn from them. Am I the asshole for rejecting the worst name ever for our offspring? So my husband, 38 male, and I, 36 female, are expecting our first child, a bouncing baby girl due in a few months. We were both over the moon when we found out the gender, but now things have gotten complicated, to say the least. See, when we first started talking about names, the boy name was immediately decided, Stuart Jr., after my husband. No problem here, it's a classic name and carries family meaning, but for a girl, things got murky. My husband suggested Stuarta. No, you are not having a joke, Stuarta. Apparently, his logic is that since Stuart ends in T, we can just add an A to make it feminine. I tried explaining why that doesn't quite work, how it sounds more like a furniture brand than a human name, how she would be endlessly correcting people, and explaining its origin. He is adamant though, says that it honors him while giving our daughter a unique name. I've suggested alternatives, feminine names that maybe share a similar sound or meaning to Stuart, names that he's mentioned liking in the past, even just going back to the drawing board entirely, but he is fixated on Stuarta. Now, I love my husband dearly, and I understand wanting to honor family, but I can't imagine subjecting our daughter to a lifetime of awkward stares and endless questions about her unusual name. I also worry about potential bullying and the impact that it could have on her self-esteem. So Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to budge on Stuarter? Is there any compromise that I haven't considered? Help a soon-to-be mama out. Looking forward to your thoughts, and hopefully some sanity checks. Edit, please no suggestions of other names. The man clearly has a theme, and I need to gently steer him away from it, not fuel the fire. In the comments, Polly the Pony 1993 says, not the asshole. Naming a child is a 2 yes and 1 no situation, meaning you need 2 times yes for a name to be it, and 1 no to make sure that the name is not the name you choose. Works both ways if you'd ask me. Also, I'm not a fan of naming the first name of a child after a parent, because then the child will always be compared to their parents and need to fight harder to be their own person. I have less problems with a middle name being connected to someone else, parents, grandparents, because that's only a formal name and not used in everyday business. Why is he so dead set on Stuarter? I mean, there are so many beautiful names, but he only wants to name his daughter after him? Why not after the mother, like your name, Junior? It's a bit misogynistic to only want to name the baby after the father, because whose last name will the baby get? His as well? Maybe you could find a way, like name the baby with the same first letter as your husband, Stella, Sally, Sana, etc., and make sure the baby has a middle name, if she shares the same last name as her father, because it will be annoying for simple things like mail and stuff. To piggyback on this, what's his middle name? Could there be a feminine version of that is less objectionable / actually a name, rather than just a weird mishmash of sounds? I suppose if you go by the meaning of the name, Stuart / Stuart means guardian of the house, so perhaps Hestia / Vesta. I suppose Stacy is an option, but I'd presume Opie doesn't want to be Stacy's mom. Girl, it is super simple. He gets to choose the name when he pushes out the baby. Why is it only him being honored and not you? By the way, you need to let your nurses at the hospital know about this. I've read some horror stories here on Reddit where dads or mother-in-laws have named the baby and signed the birth certificates. Not the asshole. The idea of having children as a means of honoring the parent is so incredibly effed up and bound to lead to a lifetime of dysfunction. But then, I'm flat out against ever naming a child for anyone else anyway. Except that you're not having a baby, you are giving life to a human and raising them to adulthood. Give them their own identity for the love of all that's holy. This is why I tell people parenthood scares the shit out of me. You aren't raising a baby, or even a child. You are raising an adult, a whole-ass human that will exist on and interact with this planet for 70+ years. I feel like having a baby is basically a covenant with society not to raise an unspeakable adult. Definitely don't make it harder by giving them the stupidest name that I've ever imagined. Not the asshole. Tell him he only gets 1 kid named after him, so if he goes with Stuarter now, he will never get a Stuart Jr. And how come it's so important that he be honored, but not you? See how he feels about naming a future son a male version of your name. Remind him that baby names need a yes from both parents, or it's a no. You both need to be able to live with whatever you go with, even if that means both of you missing out on the one you want most. Yeah, I don't think you're an asshole for rejecting Stuarter. That's just setting the kid up for absolute failure in school. You're going to crush that kid's social life before it even gets a chance to get out there in the world. Your husband is only thinking about himself and his feelings. It sounds like he's completely rejecting the premise of 2 yes, 1 no when it comes to baby names. It has to be about him. I'm the most important one here. You're just a vessel for my child who's not an adult and isn't going to have feelings or deal with bullying because I didn't have to deal with that. Those are the vibes that your husband is giving me. I really don't like those vibes, and I think you really need to sort this out before the baby comes. But as it stands, not the asshole. And now, on to the updates. First, the good news. We have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. She weighed in at 7 pounds 4 ounces and already has the most incredible head of dark hair. Seriously, where did that come from? Labor was a marathon, not a sprint. 18 hours of fun. But the amazing nurses kept me fueled up on ice chips and cheesy encouragement. Now for the not-so-good news. The name situation. Buckle up, because this might take a minute. Right before pushing started, things got a little bit heated between me and Stuart. Apparently, the stress of contractions made him even more attached to Stuarter. He was pacing the room muttering about family legacy, while I was doing some very impressive LeMay's breathing exercises. Suddenly, my water broke with a rather impressive pop. Let's say that it startled everyone in the room, including Stuart. The nurse, bless her heart, took advantage of the distraction and very calmly started prepping for delivery. Everything after that was a blur of pushing, encouraging words, and the most amazing head of dark hair emerging into the world. The second our daughter was out, screaming her little lungs out, a wave of pure, primal love washed over me. It was in that moment, staring at this tiny, perfect human being, that the name debate completely evaporated. There was no way I could call this beautiful little girl Stuarter. So, what did we end up with? In the haze of postpartum bliss, I blurted out the first name that popped into my head. The name of the incredible nurse who had coached me through labor, Ella. Yes, Ella. Not exactly the most adventurous choice, but in that moment, it felt perfect. Strong, steady, kind, just like the woman who had helped bring our daughter into this world. Stuart, bless his confused heart, just looked at me, then at our daughter, then back to me again. Finally, he let out a shaky laugh and said, Ella it is. Thanks for all the support and hilarious Stuarter comparisons. Here is to sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the incredible journey of parenthood. In the comments, Tankword says, don't name your kids a name they have to explain for the rest of their life. It's a selfish indulgence by a parent and the biggest asshole thing you can do to a baby that has done nothing to deserve it. Ella might not be the most adventurous name ever, but it'll never be a negative for your kid. Good show rejecting Stuarter. I knew a guy whose dad's name was Al. He got named Al X, Alex, and his sister Al S, Alice. His mum finally stepped in and the third kid got a normal name. To be fair, non-memorable. And I also knew a happy guy and buddy guy. I just want to name a kid something they'll find on a toothbrush or keychain. What's up, buddy guy? What a stupid name. Happy guy and buddy guy. Oh shit. They'd be so bullied. Oh my god. Imagine needing your child to be named after you so badly that you think anything even remotely resembling Stuarter is a good idea. Damn, Stuart. If you're so desperate to have something named after you, why don't you go discover a new planet or something? Don't have a whole-ass kid. I truly cannot imagine naming my child after myself. I don't understand that impulse at all. I certainly can't imagine being so hell-bent on self-aggrandizement that I would doom my kid to a name like Stuarter. Thank God that the nurse was named Ella and not Buddy Guy, because imagine she just has the kid on her chest there being like, oh, welcome to the world, Buddy Guy. How do you give birth to a kid and do that to them? That's so insane. Hey, happy guy. Nice to see you. You're so fucked. I still can't get over that mental image of him just pacing around the delivery room, mumbling about family legacy. What the hell? How do you, as the partner of this guy, kind of just block that out of your mind? Yeah, my husband's a bit weird like that. He paces around every now and then just chanting sweet nothings to himself. He's usually not this weird, but he can't get over the name Stuarter. It's so much so that he's gone into shamanistic little rituals to himself. He thinks that if he constantly puts a curse on me, that I'll change my mind about it, but that sure as hell ain't happening, that's for sure. He's just a funny little happy guy. He's just our little buddy guy pacing around the room, you know? All's well that ends well. Thank you for sharing the story, OP, and still not the asshole for that one.